Chapter 2566. The Conference Hall's Special Permit. The tall city guard did not let down his guard because of Xiao Hua's words. Instead, he frowned and said, "Please take out the special permit, fellow cultivator Xiao." Captain. While the captain was talking to Xiao Hua, 2 or 3 city guards beside him were shocked. The city guard closest to the captain hurriedly whispered to him through telepathy. When Xiao Hua took out his token, the city guard had also finished his telepathy. The captain, who was in the intermediate foundation establishment stage, was surprised. He even looked at Xiao Hua a few times before he cupped his hands and said, "So it's Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect who killed Qin Jian. Chu, sorry for the disrespect. However, fellow cultivator Xiao, please take out your token for me to check and let Chu confirm your identity. It's my duty, please forgive me." "Oh, they issued the reward so quickly?" Xiao Hua was surprised when he heard that. In his mind, he had made great contributions in the past and was repeatedly questioned by the conference hall. They even sent people to check. Killing Qin Jian was such a great contribution. Wouldn't the conference hall take a long time to verify it? How could they issue the reward so quickly? "Fellow cultivator Chu, please check it." Xiao Hua took out his token and handed it to the city guard. Xiao Hua's command medallion was naturally normal. The seal of the Assembly Hall's special permission medallion was also inside. The city guard surnamed Chu looked at it and very respectfully returned it to Xiao Hua. His previous stern expression changed. However, within this respect, there seemed to be a hint of pretense. Immediately, city guard Chu smiled and said, "Fellow cultivator Xiao, are you going back to Sky Patrol City? Or did you just come out of Sky Patrol City?" Xiao Hua's eyes swiveled, and he replied, "Neither. I was ordered by senior brother Li Zongbao to deliver the news. I was just passing by Sky Patrol City and was thinking about whether to return to Sky Patrol City to meet senior brother Li. Fellow cultivator Chu is here. Fellow cultivator Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction." City guard Chu's eyes lit up and he said with joy, "Chu was on duty in the south of Sky Patrol City some time ago and did not return to Sky Patrol City. I just heard from my disciple that the notorious sword cultivator Qin Jian was killed by fellow cultivator Xiao and fellow cultivator Li. This was truly satisfying. In particular, Qin Jian sneaked into my Sky Patrol City and assassinated Senior 2. You have avenged my Sky Patrol City. Fellow Daoist Xiao, can you tell me what happened that day?" You flatter me, you flatter me. It's all thanks to fellow Daoist Li Zongbao's profound magic power. Fellow Daoist Xiao Maro Xiao of Xuanyan School is also formidable. This humble one only played a supporting role from the side. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself. Xiao Hua hastily and humbly declined. Nonsense, even if Xiao Hua's little tail was raised high, he still didn't dare to casually say it out loud. Who knew how Li Zongbao and Xiao Maro reported it in the conference hall? Fellow cultivator Xiao is too humble. We really want to know how that evil Qin Jian was killed. The city guard surnamed Chu and the other city guards were envious. Evidently, they truly believed that Xiao Hua, a cultivator whose cultivation was similar to theirs, was able to obtain such a great military achievement because of luck. I really don't dare to claim credit for myself. Xiao Hua's face was slightly red, as if he was really ashamed. The more Xiao Hua acted like this, the more the city guard surnamed Chu pestered him. It was as if they really saw that if they had followed Li Zongbao and Xiao Maro to Flowing Ice Valley, Qin Jian would have been killed by them. Xiao Hua sneered in his heart, but his face was really red. This guy's blushing technique was absolutely perfect, even more skillful than the heaven and earth in the sleeve technique. Fellow Daoist Crooked Soul, farewell. Xiao Hua flew up and activated the command medallion with a flip of his hand. He said, "I'll call senior martial brother Li Zongbao over and let him tell you about it. I still have a mission to complete." Haha, all right. The city guard surnamed Chu was also proud of himself. He was happier than killing Qin Jian, as if he had caught Xiao Hua's hypocrisy behind the military achievement. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's token didn't shine at all. Obviously, either the Sky Patrol City had blocked the transmission of the token, or Li Zongbao wasn't in the Sky Patrol City. Fellow Daoist Xiao. A city guard next to him smiled and said, as early as a few days ago, the Golden Core stage masters in the meeting hall had led the disciples of various sects to the battlefield. I'm afraid fellow Daoist Li Zongbao has also left the Sky Patrol City with the disciples of the Utopia faction. Oh. Xiao Hua's face was slightly shocked. They've gone. Why didn't they inform me? I'm afraid fellow Daoist Li has other plans. The city guard surnamed Chu said with a smile. Xiao Hua sneered and thought to himself, knowing that the disciples of various sects have already left the Sky Patrol City, they're still here making a fuss and not telling me the news. They're obviously making fun of me. Damn it, it seems that the Sky Patrol City doesn't care about the reward in the meeting hall. Of course, I'm not even at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, so it's inevitable that they'll look down on me. Fellow Taoists, please enlighten me. Xiao Hua hurriedly asked, I wonder where Senior Brother Li or the Imperial Thunder Sect are going to fight. This is a secret order from the meeting hall, we don't know about it. The city guard surnamed Chu said with a smile, at this time in the Sky Patrol City, there are disciples from various sects guarding the city. If fellow Daoist Xiao is in a hurry, you can go to the Sky Patrol City to ask first. Hehe, no need. Xiao Hua hurriedly flew up and cupped his hands. I still have a mission to complete, I'll look for them after I've completed it. With that, Xiao Hua's figure headed towards the northwest, looking a little flustered. Ha 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 tilde. After Xiao Hua's figure disappeared, the city guard surnamed Chu burst out laughing. Even the other city guards were swaying back and forth. Damn it, this Xiao Hua is really lucky. With such a cultivation level. And he could even kill Qin Jian. If it weren't for the support of Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Maro from the Xuanyan school, he would have been killed by Qin Jian. Haha, you're right. Another city guard laughed until he was out of breath and said, look at his blushing face. He also knows how to feel ashamed. Also, when he heard about joining the battle, he immediately flew away, as if he was afraid of knowing where the battle line was. Such a cultivator. How could he make any contributions? He's just lucky, it's not that his cultivation level is high. A city guard said sarcastically. At this moment, a red message talisman flew over from the direction of the Sky Patrol City and stopped in front of the city guard surnamed Chu. The city guard managed to stop laughing and caught the message talisman. After he immersed his divine thought into it, his expression suddenly changed to one of extreme awkwardness and embarrassment. What's wrong? Captain Chu. A few city guards hurriedly asked. The city master's secret order. Send it to all the teams on duty in the Sky Patrol City. The city guard surnamed Chu said word by word, if you find traces of Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him, immediately, directly report to the city master's mansion. Ah! All the city guards were shocked, and the sarcastic disciple almost screamed, what? What's going on? As the city guards of the Sky Patrol City, they knew better than anyone else the meaning of the sentence, if you find traces of Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect, do not disturb him, immediately report to the city master's mansion. Quickly send the message talisman to the city master. Captain Chu ordered a city guard beside him, then he turned and flew into the air. But after flying for less than 30 meters, he stopped again. His eyes gazed in the direction Xiao Hua had disappeared, and he forcefully extinguished the thought of pursuing him. He waved his hand and said, you all continue to patrol, Chu will go and meet the city master. Yes, I understand. The city guards replied in unison, then flew up again and continued to patrol in the same direction as before. However, their eyes were still looking in the direction where Xiao Hua flew. They really did not know. How did this disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, whose cultivation level was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, offend the Snow Region Master? Of course, Xiao Hua did not know that when he sent Zhong Haoren and the others back to the Sky Patrol City, in the lofty City Master's mansion in the Sky Patrol City, the Snow Region Master, whom he was afraid of 2 hours ago, was sitting cross-legged on the cattail hassock. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and no one knew what he was thinking. However, his expression was not calm, which showed that he was not meditating. Strange. Why do I feel a little uneasy? The Snow Region Master opened his eyes slightly, and there was a trace of confusion under his eyelid. Could it be that there is a breakthrough in the Qianzhong mysterious technique? After the Snow Region Master circulated his technique, his snow-white eyebrows trembled slightly, and the confusion turned into a trace of ecstasy, but it disappeared in a flash. I really did not expect this. The Qianzhong mysterious technique, which I have not made any progress in all this time, is actually making progress here. This progress is not much, but, no matter what, it is the biggest progress in the last 100 years. The Snow Region Master's expression returned to normal and he thought to himself, before the Tao Cultivator War, I went into closed-door cultivation for more than 10 years and took countless pills, but I didn't see any progress. This Tao Cultivator War has only been going on for 10 years, and I have been so worried about the war that I didn't have time to cultivate. I didn't even do my homework, but my cultivation level has actually improved. It's really like when you plant flowers, the flowers don't bloom, but when you plant a willow, the willow grows. Thinking about this, the Snow Region Master raised his eyebrows and whispered, Lengbi, you have been waiting outside for 2 days. What can you do for me? Following the Snow Region Master's words, there was a flash of light and Fang Lengbi's figure appeared outside the door. When Fang Lengbi heard the Snow Region Master speak, he was very surprised. He quickly walked in and bowed. Disciple has nothing special to do, but I heard that the city master hasn't dealt with any city matters during this time, so Disciple came to tell the city master about the war. Mitch, what is there to say? The Snow Region Master sneered. In this Tao Cultivator War, my Tao sect will suffer a great loss. There is no one among this group of golden core cultivators that knows how to strategize, so how could they gain an advantage? They can only wait for those old nascent soul cultivators to clean up their mess. -9. Chapter 2567. Fang Lengbi wanted to laugh but did not dare to laugh when he heard Sage Xueyu say wipe his ass. However, based on Sage Xueyu's words, Fang Lengbi knew that Sage Xueyu was in an extremely good mood. After a while, Fang Lengbi suppressed his laughter and reported, in the past few days, the conference hall has sent out orders for disciples from all sects to go on expeditions. We've already found out the power distribution of the sword cultivators in the Huan Kingdom. Based on this information, the conference hall has sent out another order for the final battle. Now, the golden core cultivators in the conference hall have set out on a large scale, bringing all the cultivators to the Huan Kingdom. Our Sky Patrol City has also sent out more than 80,000 disciples. As he spoke, Fang Lengbi held up a jade pendant above his head. I've asked the city lord about this matter, but the city lord ignored me, so I can only act on my own. Millimeter, it's fine. Master Xueyu grabbed the jade pendant and it flew into his hand. However, he didn't even look at it. He nodded and said, everything related to the war in the Sky Patrol City has been handed over to you and Jin Kang. Your decision is my decision. No matter how stupid you are, you don't need me to wipe your ass for you. Ha! Fang Lengbi couldn't help but laugh. He bowed respectfully and said, Disciple congratulates the city lord on improving your cultivation again. Ha 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 tilde Master Xueyu laughed loudly. My cultivation is still not enough. You still saw through it. He. Disciple has followed the city lord for over 100 years. The city lord treats Disciple like a nephew. Disciple knows that the city lord is focused on cultivation and doesn't pay much attention to the war. Previously, the city lord was in a bad mood and didn't even see Disciple. Now that the city lord is in a good mood, Disciple naturally knows. It has nothing to do with the city lord's state of mind. Fang Lengbi said honestly. That's right, that's right. Master Xueyu wiped his eyebrows with his finger and said with a smile, although I don't pay much attention to the war, I still know the general trend. However, the conference hall sent out the order for the final battle so early, which is beyond my expectations. When Fang Leng heard this, he was just about to take out a jade slip from his sleeve. However, when he saw Xueyu Zhenren's rare interest, he stopped himself and smiled. What does the city lord think? According to this old man's original opinion, the conference hall would release some bait to lure out sword cultivators from the country of Shi and country of Lian. Then, they would kill them one by one. This way, perhaps they could delay it for 3 to 5 years. But now, how did these core formation brats suddenly have the courage? A decisive battle? This is something this old man didn't expect. Perfected Shui Yu seemed to be deep in thought. If they had the guts to do so, coupled with Tu Hong's scheme, the battle between Dao cultivators would have been decided long ago instead of being pushed to the outskirts of Sky Patrol City by Sword Cultivator. Haha. Fang Lengbi smiled and wanted to put his hand into his sleeve, but Master Shui raised his voice again. Lengbi. Yes, Sir City Lord, what instructions do you have? Fang Lung's hand stopped as he hurriedly asked. Is there any movement near the sword mound? Sword mound? Fang Lengbi was taken aback. After thinking for a moment, he smiled bitterly and said, well, Sir City Lord, this time, many sword cultivators have forced their way into the country of Shi and country of Lian. The sword mound is already behind the sword cultivators' defensive line and is very far away. The city guards of Sky Patrol City can't patrol the sword mound together with the disciples of the various sects during the battle between sword cultivators. Although I have already sent my disciples out, they can only patrol once every 10 days. This time, there is a high possibility that some disciples will die. Therefore, I don't have a detailed grasp of their movements. Of course, according to my recent news, as well as the information from the spies in the country of Huan, there are no strange movements in the sword mound. There are only some sword cultivators who are pregnant with swords, some small sects that didn't participate in the battle, and some cultivation families that are active there. Of course, our pawns in the country of Huan have low cultivation levels and are not valued by the sword cultivators. Their knowledge is also limited. Those cultivators must be crazy from poverty. The sword mound is already far away from our cultivators' defensive line and is behind the sword cultivators. They still dare to go there. Perfected Shui Yu sneered. It's precisely because it's behind the sword cultivators that the sword cultivators are less vigilant. Those low-level cultivators have a chance. Fang Lengbi smiled apologetically. Even if the sword cultivators are less vigilant, it's not something they can covet. Any illusory sword that appears will be enough to wipe out their sects, right? Yes. That's why birds die for food and men die for wealth. Fang Lengbi agreed. What about the conference hall? Perfected Shui Yu suddenly asked. The conference hall? Fang Lengbi was startled, but he immediately understood. A strange expression appeared on his face. Sir City Lord, are you talking about the conference hall's attention to the sword mound? What? Perfected Shui Yu was surprised, and his face was filled with disbelief. Could it be that the conference hall, that's right. Fang Lengbi smiled bitterly. The conference hall didn't send any disciples to patrol the sword mound. It seems, from their actions, I didn't see how important the sword mound was to them. They only told me when they were stationed in Sky Patrol City, to inform them if there was news about the sword mound in Sky Patrol City. Perfected Shui Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He slapped his forehead and said, oh my God. The sword mound is the last barrier for the sword cultivators to retreat. If they don't know about the situation in the sword mound, and the sword cultivators are forced to retreat, will they chase after them? Maybe. They have been suppressed by the sword cultivators, and the battle line has long gone beyond the sword mound. They never thought that there would be a day where they would fight the sword cultivators to the sword mound, right? Fang Lengbi replied with a smile. It was as if this war was a good show happening beside Sky Patrol City, and had nothing to do with them. How can such a kid defeat the sword cultivators? Perfected Shui Yu snorted. Looks like there won't be any Golden Core disciples who can stand out in this war. Of course. Which Golden Core cultivator can compare with Junior Brother 2? Fang Lengbi couldn't help but blurt it out. But when he said it, his heart trembled, and he stole a glance at Perfected Shui Yu. Perfected Shui Yu only snorted. I naturally think highly of Tu Hong's talent, but he's too bold. And he's unlucky. Yes, but... Fang Lengbi touched his sleeves again. Just as he was about to speak, Perfected Shui Yu asked again, Lengbi, you said that the meeting hall doesn't care about the sword mound. Although Sky Patrol City patrols the sword mound, the swordsmen in the sword mound aren't important. Could it be that the sword cultivators this time are all mediocre? They didn't make an issue out of the sword mound? I'm not sure. Fang Lengbi smiled apologetically. After all, the sword mound is behind the sword cultivators, and the sword mound is thousands of miles wide. We can't completely inspect it, so who knows what's inside? Of course, according to the records of the previous war, the sword cultivators have a 50% chance of resisting stubbornly in the sword mound, blocking our cultivators outside the sword mound. After all, once we break through the sword mound, we'll be in the Huan country's territory. TCH, so what about the Huan country's territory? That place is even colder than my snow region's highlands. Who would want to go there? Perfected Shui Yu was disdainful, then sighed, sigh, it's a pity that our Dao Sex transportation array has been lost. If we had a formation master to refine it, this war wouldn't be so difficult. Haha, if there was a transportation array, I'm afraid this war would be even more difficult. Fang Lengbi smiled apologetically. Ha ha ha, that's right, those golden core brats in the meeting hall. I'm afraid they would have been beaten into cowards by the sword cultivators. Our Sky Patrol City's spirit stone veins wouldn't have fallen into their hand. Perfected Shui Yu laughed. Yes, Fang Lengbi nodded, then said, that's right, according to the latest war report, the spirit stone veins in the Seven Extremes Mountains have been seized by the Imperial Thunder Sect and the Huan Hua Sect. Haha, the latest war report is in your sleeve, right? Perfected Shui Yu laughed. Yes, yes. Fang Lengbi wiped the sweat from his forehead and smiled. I should have taken it out long ago, but seeing the city lord so happy, I didn't want to disturb you. Millimeter, show it to me. Perfected Shui Yu stretched out his hand and said, see if there's any other good news. Yes, sir. Fang Lengbi raised the jade slip and said with a smile, besides this, there's another piece of good news. Oh, what is it? Perfected Shui Yu took the jade slip and asked casually. Qin Jian, who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu Hong, was killed by 3 cultivators from the Dao Sec. This can be considered as helping Sky Patrol City vent our anger, Fang Lengbi said with a smile, but then he thought of something and hurriedly said, of course, even if the City Lord's judgment is that Qin Jian might not be the one who tried to assassinate junior brother Tu, these 3 disciples from the Dao Sect have helped us vent our anger. This Qin Jian was too arrogant. He even killed 3 golden core cultivators before he died. Oh, which 3 golden core cultivators? Perfected Shui Yu was surprised to hear that Qin Jian had been killed, so he probed the jade slip with his spiritual force and asked casually. Not golden core cultivators. 3 foundation establishment stage disciples. Fang Lengbi smiled apologetically. The report in the meeting hall was a little vague, but it should be that Qin Jian was severely injured by the 3 golden core cultivators, and the 3 foundation establishment stage disciples took the opportunity to kill him. How is that possible? Perfected Shui Yu said coldly, Qin Jian was a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman, and his cultivation level was comparable to an advanced golden core cultivator. How could 3 foundation establishment stage disciples kill him? This credit. I'm afraid it's fake, right? Fang Lengbi's back was drenched in cold sweat when he saw Perfected Shui Yu's gaze. He quickly smiled apologetically and said, the fake credit was done by the disciples of the various sects who participated in the battle. It has nothing to do with Sky Patrol City. Who would dare to fake the credit for something as important as killing Qin Jian? Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction even brought back Qin Jian's head and sword token, so it can't be fake. Oh! Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction, Xiao Maro from the Xuanyan school, Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect? Perfected Shui Yu frowned and said in confusion, one is in the Advanced Foundation Establishment stage, one is in the Middle Foundation Establishment stage, and one is at the peak of the Initial Foundation Establishment stage? Isn't this a joke? Even if Qin Jian was lying there, his flying sword was not something that the 3 of them could block, right? -9. Chapter 2568. City Governor, do you believe me? The cultivators in the meeting hall believe me. I couldn't wait for the city governor's order, so I sent the promised reward to the meeting hall without permission. Fang Lengbi said hesitantly, I didn't dare to delay this matter that involved junior brother Tu Hong. I didn't want to hurt the disciples of Sky Patrol City. Humph. There must be something fishy about this. Shui Yu Perfected Master said coldly, the swordsman who assassinated Tu Hong wasn't Qin Jian. I was lured by a sword that day, and I left Sky Patrol City on the day Tu Hong was assassinated. I saw Qin Jian hundreds of miles away from Sky Patrol City. If he could assassinate Tu Hong before me, he would be a divine sword cultivator. Ah! Fang Lengbi was shocked. So, the person who assassinated junior brother Tu in Sky Patrol City wasn't Qin Jian? Then, who is this fake Qin Jian? According to the cultivators at the scene, this fake Qin Jian was Qin Jian's face, and he was also using flying sword technique. Especially, the sword formation, it's definitely not my Dao cultivator's flying sword. The flying sword and the sword formation are not surprising. Xueyu perfected master's face darkened. There are two key points. First, how did the assassin escape from Sky Patrol City? Second, what's so special about the sword formation that it made Tu Hong, who was always calm, go crazy? Hiss. Fang Lengbi suddenly thought of a possibility. He gasped and said in shock, could it be? City Governor, that's right. Xueyu perfected master's tone was terrifying. I've been thinking about these days, and I think that the assassin might not have left Sky Patrol City at all, so my tricks at the city gate and teleportation formation were ineffective. Besides, if the assassin could impersonate Qin Jian, he could also impersonate someone else. That's how he escaped my detection. Also, in the sword formation. I'm afraid there's some soul cultivator's item that can disturb people's mind. Soul cultivator? Fang Lengbi bit his lips. Could it be that a soul cultivator is here too? That's possible. Xueyu perfected master narrowed his eyes. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said loudly, Golden Pit. Why are you so flustered? When Fang Lang heard this, he smiled apologetically and said, Senior brother Jin is impatient and doesn't have the time to wait outside the hall. He has already been here a few times. Seeing the city lord open the hall today, I'm afraid there's something going on. Disciple Jin Kang greets the city lord. Jin Kang walked up to the main hall and bowed. All right, get up. Xueyu waved his hand and said, you rushed into the main hall the moment you entered my residence. Is there something important? Yes. Jin Kang said as he took out a jade slip from his bosom, handed it forward and said, yesterday, I cleaned up the jade slip and found that before Tu Hong Lin left, there was a period of time when the records of the meeting hall were not sent to the mansion, so I went to Tu Hong's mansion and found this jade slip in the closed study room. Oh, is there anything special about it? Xueyu Sage asked patiently. Jin Kang was also stunned. He raised his head and looked at Xueyu. Just like Fang Lengbi, he immediately sensed that Xueyu was in a good mood. He glanced at Fang Lengbi and bowed. Disciple congratulates City Lord for improving your cultivation. Ha, ha, ha. Xueyu Sage laughed and said, tell me, what did you find? This. Jin Kang bit his lips and said hesitantly, Disciple checked this jade slip and found something strange in it. Tu Hong recorded what happened in the meeting hall during those days, including Li Zongbao from the Utopia faction and Xiao Hua from the Thunder Control sect. Oh, is there also Xiao Maro from the Xuanyan school? Fang Lung asked in surprise. Yes, it's the three people who killed Qin Jian. Jin Kang obviously knew about this and nodded. However, according to the records in the jade slip, Xiao Maro had just been rescued by Xiao Hua from the Yin-Yang Twin Springs Mountain. Oh, or rather, he was brought back. Daoist Master Xue's snow-white eyebrows twitched even though there was no wind. He suddenly had a bad feeling. In this jade slip, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua's series of military exploits are recorded. This disciple found it inconceivable. These two Foundation establishment cultivators did many things that even Golden Core cultivators couldn't accomplish. This disciple won't speak of the specifics. This jade slip has all the records. Sir City Lord will know with a single glance. Jin Kang said concisely, what surprised me the most was that at the end of the jade slip, junior brother Tu Hong wrote this sentence. What sentence? Fang Lung interrupted curiously. According to disciples' observation, Li Zongbao and Xiao Hua must have a secret skill that can greatly improve their cultivation in a short period of time. Moreover, this person is very intelligent and seems to be hiding something. If it's Li Zongbao, then he has a domineering aura behind his arrogance. If it's Xiao Hua, then he has a murderous aura behind his modesty. However, according to disciples' observation of the golden core stage cultivators in the meeting hall, they seemed to have noticed it too, but they didn't point it out. I think these Tao sect cultivators must be plotting something. Maybe they want to suppress our Sky Patrol city, or maybe they want to show off their power to us. Of course, Li Zongbao is the main reason, because Heng Lu always helps Li Zongbao cover up at the crucial moment. Moreover, Disciple feels that some of Xiao Hua's achievements were given to him by Li Zongbao and Xiao Maro. This is nothing. Fang Lengbi asked curiously. The three cultivators have a good relationship. Otherwise, they wouldn't have joined hands to kill Qin Jian. Junior brother Fang, don't be anxious. Jin Keng said coldly, I haven't finished speaking. Junior brother Tu Hong said, if this person is Xiao Hua, then, it's too scary. City Lord, please be careful. Wang tilde the sound of wind and clouds surging immediately sounded from the main hall, and a hurricane instantly swept through the entire main hall. The hurricane made Fang Lengbi and Jin Keng's robes flutter, and they were so scared that their faces turned pale. The two of them hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to say anything. Obviously, they knew that. Shuiyu Master was angry. After a while, Shuiyu Master retracted his spiritual sense from the jade slip and said coldly, Tu Hong died a good death. What a good death. He actually died in the hands of a Dao sect cultivator. City Lord. Jin Keng's face showed a trace of confusion. Senior brother Jin. Just now, City Lord said that the person who killed junior brother Tu was definitely not Qin Jian. He saw Qin Jian outside the city that day. Fang Lengbi said softly. Could it be this Xiao Hua? Jin Keng naturally knew about the matter between Tu Hong and Dui Chimeng. He immediately pointed out Xiao Hua, this is not possible, right? Do you still have the list of people who entered and left Sky Patrol City those few days? Shuiyu Master asked coldly. Yes. Fang Lengbi hurriedly took out a jade slip. This item was very important, so he carried it with him at all times. Shuiyu Master took a closer look and threw it to Fang Lengbi. Take a look yourself. On that day, Li Zongbao, Xiao Maro, and Xiao Hua returned to Sky Patrol City. Yes. Fang Lengbi's expression changed after looking at it. Xiao Hua, Kui Hongshan, and Dui Chimeng were all from Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. When he returned to Sky Patrol City, he knew that Kui Hongshan and Dui Chimeng were going to dual cultivate. When he returned to Imperial Thunder Sect's encampment, he saw that Kui Hongshan had been deceived or that Qian Mo had put him under house arrest. Thus, he had evil intentions and sneaked into junior brother Tu's residence. It seems. Dui Chimeng and Xiao Hua didn't have much of a relationship. Could it be that Kui Hongshan and Xiao Hua had a life and death relationship? There was no need to kill junior brother Tu. Jin Keng was confused. Mph, do you know why Tu Hong didn't dare to send this to you in time? Shuiyu Master snorted. He might not have time, but the biggest reason was that he didn't dare to believe it. Why did the last sentence of the jade slip say that Xiao Hua was scary? He felt that the survival of Imperial Thunder Sect's first team could be due to Xiao Hua's strength. How is that possible? Fang Lengbi and Jin Kang couldn't believe that the spirit howl array of Mount Quan Jin that even nascent soul cultivators didn't dare to touch was broken by Xiao Hua and he was still safe and sound inside. Of course, this was only his suspicion. Tu Hong was afraid that mentioning Mount Quan Jin would provoke me, but he didn't dare to not take revenge, so he was hesitant. It was also because of this hesitation that Xiao Hua had time to take his life. Shuiyu Master said faintly. His anger had gradually subsided. Of course, if it was like what City Lord said, that Xiao Hua's strength was close to the nascent soul stage, then his contributions, his return to Sky Patrol City to assassinate Tu Hong, and even killing Qin Jian would all be extremely easy. Fang Lengbi asked in confusion. But why didn't Qian Mo know about Xiao Hua's cultivation? Then why didn't the Golden Core cultivators in the meeting hall know? Why didn't they say it out loud? Firstly, they didn't know that the person who assassinated Junior 2 was definitely not Qin Jian. Didn't the City Lord also suspect that it was a soul cultivator? Even he didn't suspect the Dao sect cultivators. How could they have thought of it? Jin Kang retorted, furthermore, even if they saw something, that Xiao Hua is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. What does it have to do with them? Qian Mo, that sanctimonious thing is blind. I'm afraid he really couldn't see it. Why would those golden core cultivators remind him? I still don't agree. This is a 1 in a million situation. Of course, this is also the most ideal deduction. Fang Lengbi stubbornly disagreed. Chen PH, what if? If there wasn't this, how could I cultivate to the nascent soul stage? If there wasn't this, how could you all condense your core? Shui Yu Master laughed sinisterly. I have a feeling that this Xiao Hua is the main force that killed Qin Jian. Hearing Shui Yu Master's words, Fang Lengbi didn't dare to say anything else. Where is Xiao Hua now? Shui Yu Master asked. Reporting to the city lord. Fang Lengbi hurriedly said. According to the meeting hall, he didn't even return to Sky Patrol City. He was sent somewhere else by Li Zongbao. What place? This, the meeting hall didn't say. This disciple doesn't know. -9. Chapter 2569. Hihi, that's right. Xiao Hua must have a guilty conscience. Jin Keng said coldly, if he returns to Sky Patrol City and the city lord finds out that he killed Qin Jian, he will definitely think of his cultivation. How can he escape from the city lord's search in Sky Patrol City? Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua. Shui Yu Dao Master gritted his teeth. Thinking of the place where Qin Jian disappeared, it was not far from Imperial Thunder Sect. How could he not know that he was tricked by Xiao Hua? Send out the city lord's secret order. Shui Yu Dao Master ordered in a low voice, if any disciple on duty discovers Xiao Hua's whereabouts, immediately inform the city lord's resident. Yes, disciple understands. Jin Keng hurriedly sent out the order. Fang Lengbi hurriedly said, Xiao Hua is in Imperial Thunder Sect's army right now. City lord might as well inform Qian Mo. Idiot. Shui Yu Dao Master scolded. Xiao Hua even killed Qin Jian and Tu Hong without any scruples. How would Qian Mo know his background? No wonder Qian Leizi did not come to Sky Patrol City to attend Tu Hong and Dui Chimeng's dual cultivation ceremony. He has a guilty conscience. Even Dui Chimeng's master and Dui Chimeng's master took the opportunity to come to Sky Patrol City and did not disembark from the Thundership to greet me. It seems, they have a guilty conscience. Yes, disciple is stupid. Fang Lengbi saw Shui Yu Dao Master scolding him, which was rare, and his body trembled and he lowered his head. Yes, disciple understands. Imperial Thunder Sect must not know about this. Jin Kang sent out the city lord's order and added, Xiao Hua should only be killed quietly. Otherwise, with his contributions, the city lord wouldn't be able to easily make a move. Furthermore, at this point, Jin Kang also shrunk his neck and did not dare to speak anymore. Yes, Shui Yu Dao Master killed Xiao Hua as a nascent soul cultivator. Xiao Hua's strength aside, Xiao Hua was only a foundation establishment disciple. In front of Shui Yu Dao Master, he was just a child. If Shui Yu Dao Master directly faced Xiao Hua, then, wouldn't that be a joke? But Xiao Hua could even kill Qin Jian and Tu Hong. He and Fang Lengbi might not be his opponent. Shui Yu Dao Master would not let others do it. However, if Master Shui Yu didn't make a move now, who knew where Xiao Hua would run off to after the battle? Even if he returned to the Imperial Lightning Sect, Shui Yu would not be able to force the Imperial Lightning Sect. After all, everything was just speculation. Sky Patrol City did not have any evidence to prove that Xiao Hua was the one who killed Tu Hong. Moreover, even if Xiao Hua admitted to killing Tu Hong, why would he kill Tu Hong? Quan Jinshan and Dui Chimeng were both Xiao Hua's reasons. If this layer of responsibility was revealed, how could sect leader Qian Leizi not protect his own Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples? Leng Biao Tilda go to the Imperial Thunder Sect again and see what the relationship between Xiao Hua and Kui Hongshan is. Shui Yu Spiritual Master looked at the ashen-faced Fang Lung and said, the reason why he wanted to assassinate Tu Hong was because of Jinquan Mountain, but I can't figure out why he would be so anxious. If he were to assassinate Tu Hong while he was out of the city, even with this information, I wouldn't suspect him. Yes, disciple will head over now. Fang Lung hurriedly left. In less than half a cup of tea's time, Fang Lung hurriedly returned with a strange expression on his face. Reporting to City Lord. Fang Lung took a deep breath and said, "Disciple has asked clearly. Xiao Hua and Kui Hongshan are, from the Lightning Palace's myriad Thunder Valley. They are true brothers." No wonder. Xueyu spiritual master and Jin Kang were enlightened. At this moment, a message talisman was sent from outside and landed in Jin Kang's hand. Jin Kang frowned and crushed the message talisman. A disciple's voice was heard, reporting to City Lord, Chu Heng, who was patrolling outside Sky Patrol City, saw Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thundersec. Jin Kang hurriedly waved his hand and a message talisman shot out like lightning. However, Xueyu spiritual master was even faster than the message talisman and rushed out of the main hall. "Let's go." When Jin Kang and Fang Lung went out, Xueyu spiritual master was long gone. Only Chu Heng, who had just returned to Sky Patrol City, was left. "When and where did you see Xiao Hua?" Fang Lung hurriedly asked. "Just now," Chu Heng hurriedly said. "Disciple had just finished interrogating Xiao Hua when I received the City Lord's order." Disciple did not stop at all and used the teleportation talisman to return here. Go and receive your reward," Fang Lung ordered. After Chu Heng left, he turned to look at Jin Kang and said thoughtfully, "Once the City Lord goes, the truth will definitely come to light. Yes, if the City Lord captures Xiao Hua, there's no need to say." Jin Kang nodded. "But if the City Lord can't capture Xiao Hua, there's still no need to say." "But..." Fang Lung was still hesitant and said in a low voice, "There's still something I don't understand." "Then, how did Xiao Hua use a sword formation? How did he use a flying sword? Isn't he a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect? Is this important?" Jin Kang did not answer directly. Instead, he looked at the distant sky and said coldly, "Indeed." Fang Lung stopped talking and also looked into the distance. The two of them did not dare to leave and only waited at the entrance of the main hall. After several hours, they saw Xueyu spiritual master return. After crossing the entire country of Xi and heading to the west of Meng country, there was a huge mountain range. This mountain range was like a creeping dragon that stretched for thousands of miles. At the same time, this mountain range was also full of ups and downs. The mountains were completely different. Some places were swampy and muddy, some places were bright with the fragrance of plum blossoms, some places were shrouded in black fog, and some places were occupied by immortal cloud. In the middle of the mountain range, although the mountains were dangerous and rugged with strange rocks, the rocks were all sparkling and translucent, and the flowers were all shining. It was really a beautiful scene. This mountain range was the foundation of Meng country's famous Shuyang sect, Zhongxiu mountain range. In the mountain range, there was a mountain peak that was not very tall but was rather quiet. White feathers spread out and spiritual apes cried. Hidden by green vines, there was an extraordinary immortal's cave. It was afternoon and the round sun had already moved to the west. The orange-red sunlight passed through the green wood and shone on the door of the immortal's cave. The colorful mottled light slowly slid on the door, and it was beautiful and really attracted people's attention. Unfortunately, although there were no noisy cicadas, the chirping of birds was also not surprising. There was no one who could easily come to this immortal's abode. Whoosh! A scarlet light streaked across the sky and suddenly disturbed this quiet mountain peak. It was a communication talisman that fell in front of the immortal's cave. When the communication talisman touched the door of the immortal's cave, the door raised a circle of light and then disappeared. The communication talisman also fell down and floated in the air. Not long after, the door of the immortal's cave was pushed open with a creak. A drooping boy poked his head out and blinked his sparkling eyes a few times. With a wave of his hand, the communication talisman fell into his hand. Then, the door creaked again and slowly closed, and the boy disappeared. Martial ancestor, martial ancestor. The boy entered the immortal's cave. It was a huge valley, and the spiritual energy in the valley had condensed into mist. It floated in the air and filled the entire valley. There were countless spirit grasses, spirit trees, and even many celestial birds in the mist, making it look even more like an immortal's cave. The boy shouted as he flew. Only occasionally did he have to land on the ground. Along the way, There were many cultivators of different ages that looked at the boy with smiles on their faces. There were even a few that stopped and made way for the boy. "Thank you, senior martial brother, thank you, martial uncle." The boy's crisp voice echoed along the way. When he saw a stone wall floating in the air, the boy stopped. He bowed toward the stone wall and respectfully said, "Martial ancestor, there is a communication talisman for you outside the Immortal's cave." As the boy's voice fell, a layer of milky white mist flashed across the stone wall. When the mist dissipated, an irregular cave about 10 feet in size appeared on the stone wall. A voice came from the cave, "Bring it up." "Yes," the boy replied and flew to the top of the stone wall. He saw that this was a cave that was not very deep. There was a faint brilliance in the cave, which just happened to illuminate the entire cave. Inside the cave, there was an incomparable coolness that penetrated to the bones. The boy obediently walked inside and handed the communication talisman to a tall cultivator that was sitting cross-legged inside. This cultivator had an imposing appearance and looked amiable. It was Zhu Chenghe that Xiao Hua met at the Burial Flower Manor. At this moment, Zhu Chenghe still had an amiable expression. He took the communication talisman and said with a smile, "Hehe, Zhu, your cultivation has improved again. Good, martial ancestor knows. Zhu has been in seclusion for another 20 days. Now, I have reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. With a little more effort, I can enter the 4th level of the Qi refining realm." The boy heard the praise and replied with some exultation. Not bad." Zhu Chenghe nodded, "You can endure hardships. I was right about you. However, the way of cultivation is to be steady. Don't be arrogant just because you have just reached the 3rd level of the Qi refining realm. The road ahead is long." "Yes, Zhu knows." The boy stuck out his tongue and hurriedly bowed. Go." Zhu Chenghe didn't say much. He waved his hand and let the boy leave. Then, he opened the communication talisman and immersed his divine thought into it. When he finished reading, his face unconsciously showed a strange expression. He whispered, "Hehe, it's actually the sect leader who summoned the troops. He wants me to go to the Sky Patrol City. Could it be that the first stage of the Dao cultivator battle is going to end so soon? Will the cultivators of my Dao sect win? Or will the swordsmen of Huan country win?" Then, Zhu Chenghe looked at the light outside the cave again and said self-deprecatingly, "The sect leader's order of confinement is also removed from today. It seems that the suspicion on me is now gone. The crime of instigating a Dao cultivator battle will not fall on me." As Zhu Chenghe spoke, a strange smile appeared on his face. He clapped his hands and shouted, "Come, take my order and go to the Jade Rain Palace. Bring me a copy of all the battle reports of the battle." "Yes, I understand." A loud voice sounded from outside the cave. Then, a burly intermediate foundation establishment cultivator flew out of the cave and flew into the distance. In less than 2 hours, the disciple flew back and respectfully handed several jade slips to Zhu Chenghe. Zhu Chenghe narrowed his eyes and picked up a jade slip. He immersed his divine thought into it and seemed to be carefully reading it. However, after a while, Zhu Chenghe's face showed a trace of mockery. The golden core cultivators in this battle are all pig. Peng Dai is even more useless. The entire battle dispatch is a mess." Then, Zhu Chenghe threw the jade slip and sneered, "There's no need to read it in the future. The Dao sect will lose this battle. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators will be forced to the outskirts of the Sky Patrol City by the sword cultivators. No wonder the sect leader ordered the troops. The Xueyu spiritual master of the Sky Patrol City may not be able to hold on, right?" Zhu Chenghe looked at the few jade slips scattered on the ground and closed his eyes to meditate. However, after a few minutes, Zhu Chenghe waved his hand and another jade slip appeared in his hand. He murmured, "I wonder who the opponent of the sword cultivators is this time?" However, before he could finish speaking, he exclaimed, "Tu Hong? Quan Jinshan, killed nearly 30,000 swordsmen? And dozens of illusory sword cultivators? The Sky Patrol City has such a great talent. How can they lose?" Xiao Hua. Then, Zhu Chenghe looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was even more shocked than when he saw Tu Hong's battle achievements. He jumped up from the ground and shouted in disbelief, "This guy! Didn't he die in the ink-black forest long ago?" -9. Chapter 2570. That's right, it's Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Zhu Chenghe checked again, and the shock on his face did not disappear. The first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the first meritorious member of the Imperial Thunder Sect, he was sent to the spiritual stone mine of Mount Quanjin. Killed by a swordsman. Seeing this, Zhu Chenghe did not know why, but he let out a long sigh. Phew! This guy! How did he escape? That year, I saw him being struck by the flying sword of immortal Ming Jian with my own eyes. Zhu Chenghe suddenly realized, but I only saw him being struck. Although he was definitely dead, but I didn't see him die. Could it be that he had another adventure? But, fortunately, he died in Mount Quanjin, or else. Thinking of this, Zhu Chenghe suddenly looked at the other jade slips that were scattered around, but there was a flash of fear in his eyes. He could not wait any longer, and all the jade slips fell into his hands, and he immediately immersed his divine thought into them. Sure enough, in just a moment, Zhu Chenghe's face turned ashen, and he shouted in disbelief, "Mount Quanjin's spirit howl array. He and the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect actually came back to life. How is this possible?" Then, he immersed his divine thought into all the jade slips again, and looked through them carefully. He did not see any news about Xiao Hua, then he carefully kept the jade slips. Zhu Chenghe stood there quietly, and for a good while, he suddenly moved, and his figure flew out of the cave. He did not have time to seal the cave, and his figure flew out of the immortal cave like a meteor, and rushed into a place in the Zhongxiu mountain range, and disappear. North of the Sky Patrol City, in the sky, dark clouds covered the sky tightly. Although the dark clouds were extremely heavy, there was no lightning, nor was there any snow. But, faintly, there was a sound of thunder coming from afar. The sound of thunder was very ear-piercing, as if it was under the dark clouds. When the sound of thunder approached, another figure flashed across the sky. His speed was even faster than a shooting star as he dashed across the sky and scattered the dark cloud. What was left behind this figure were not only scattered clouds, but also the sound of thunder that reverberated between the cloud. This person was naturally Xiao Hua. After Xiao Hua left the Sky Patrol City, he immediately flew towards the northeast, and when he was out of the sight of the city guards, he immediately urged the thunder travel, and flew straight to the north. Although Shui Yu Dao Master immediately flew out of Sky Patrol City when he received the report from the city guards, his initial direction was wrong. Moreover, his flying speed was not much faster than Xiao Hua's. How could he catch up with Xiao Hua? He was destined to return empty-handed. However, the pitiful Xiao Hua still didn't know that he had been exposed by the Shui Yu sage of the Sky Patrol City. He was still flying around freely. Activating his magic power, Xiao Hua pushed Imperial Lightning travel to its limits. A feeling of freedom filled Xiao Hua's body and mind. Every pore on his body was filled with joy. It was as if cruising between heaven and earth, breaking away from all the shackles, was the life he should have. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, and the primordial spirit in the space was carefully comprehending the primordial spirit sword manipulation technique in Qin Jian's memory. This secret technique was used by sword cultivators to transform into swords, so it was naturally difficult to understand, and there were many secrets that were passed down orally by sword cultivators. Although Xiao Hua had obtained it for a long time, his progress was still very slow. However, Xiao Hua did not panic at all. If he could comprehend it in a short period of time, he would doubt the authenticity of this secret technique. It was precisely because it was difficult to comprehend that he felt at ease. It was fine if he did not make a breakthrough in this secret technique, but once he did, it would definitely be of great benefit to his cultivation. After being free for more than 10 days, when dawn came, a ray of sunlight shot out from the ground, and in an instant, the whole world was lit up. Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and a mouthful of grand essence entered his mouth, but when he closed his mouth and swallowed, his gaze froze. In front of him, a purple color dyed the heaven and earth. That purple color was so pure and so alluring, like a kind of flashing glass, it instantly attracted Xiao Hua's gaze, and directly penetrated into his eyes, and then into his mind. Purple jasmine flower tilde Xiao Hua was practically moaning as he swallowed with difficulty. His throat felt like it was dry land. The purple color in front of him flowed like velvet, gorgeous like splashes of color, and also seemed to be purple flames dancing, emitting a flirtatious charm. Throwing away heaven and earth. Seeing the purple jasmine flower, Xiao Hua naturally knew that it was the location of the sword tomb, and he did not lose his direction. When the sun that flashed across the dawn rain continent fell to the left of Xiao Hua, the purple jasmine flower blotted out the sky and covered the earth. He saw that this was a kind of spiritual grass that was about 3 feet tall, and on the purple background, there were traces of blood-red roots that stubbornly spat out from the dried-up layer of ice. From the root upwards, the dense blood-red threads gradually rubbed into the purple color, until it was purified into a purple branch. On this 2 feet long pure purple branch, there were purple flower petals that were only the size of a grain of rice. These flower petals were hollow, and there was no stamen. All the flower petals seemed to be wrapped together, as if they had never opened before. What was special was that this purple flower petal was unusually sharp at the top and oval at the bottom, like a purple teardrop falling down. If it was just a stalk of purple jasmine flower, he would not feel that it was very beautiful, and it would not even attract people's attention. But hundreds of thousands, millions of purple jasmine flowers suddenly covered the entire snowy plains, covering Xiao Hua's field of vision. What was even more unusual was that when the afterglow of the setting west sprinkled on the flower petals, that stunning purple color mixed with mournful blood red, truly filling the entire heaven and earth with sorrow. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly gave birth to a burst of sadness. Looking at the rising and falling waves of purple flower petals under the gentle breeze, he secretly said, "For 10,000 years, for 100,000 years, I don't know how many cultivators and swordsmen have been buried here, and I don't know how much blood has been spilled here. Every stalk of purple jasmine flower is most likely the illusion of a living person, and every tiny petal is most likely a drop of their blood. Even though they have fallen, their souls are unyielding. Even though they have fallen, their hearts and eyes are open. But unfortunately, what they saw was not light, they could only see frost, they could only see blood, they could only, year after year, day after day, they could only watch the battle between swordsman and cultivator." After lamenting for a moment, Xiao Hua calmed his heart and secretly said, "The sword tomb is one of the 10 most dangerous places in the country of Shi. Before I entered the Imperial Thunder sect, I had already heard of it, but I didn't expect the scenery here to be so magnificent. However, the magnificence is only on the surface, the endless danger is still on the inside. Just like this battle, even though I am lamenting those who deserve to die, I cannot be lenient in the slightest. Since I am unwilling to become a stalk of purple jasmine flower in this sword tomb, I can only let others do it. Perhaps after a few days, the sword tomb will add another dead soul." Xiao Hua released his Buddhist sense, and it gradually extended into the depths of the sword tomb like a tentacle. Precisely, when his Buddhist sense passed through these purple jasmine flowers, the sword tomb gradually gave birth to a kind of sharp feeling, as if it wanted to cut his Buddhist sense apart. That kind of indescribable piercing pain transmitted over, forcing Xiao Hua to have no choice but to withdraw his Buddhist sense. Xiao Hua took a deep breath of the chilly and icy cold air. He knew that this place was still the edge of the sword tomb, and it was precisely the place where the violet jasmine flowers bloomed. If he went further in, he would surely arrive at the battlefield of sword cultivators and Dao cultivators. Not only were there numerous incomplete formations and sword formations from before, there were even numerous spatial rifts that had been created from the battles. These rifts were probably as numerous as the hairs on an ox, and it would be dangerous for anyone to go in. The snowy highlands have always been filled with water, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has always been abundant. But here, faint golden chi seeps out from the air. In the depths of the sword tomb, there are broken flying swords, and those flying swords are mixed with the remnant souls of sword cultivators who died for them. Day and night, these flying swords wailed in grief amidst the broken sword intent, and are also nourished by golden chi. This is the tomb of flying swords. Not to mention the Dao sect cultivators, Even the sword cultivators of the Huan country wouldn't dare to rashly enter if they didn't have an extremely clear path. Xiao Hua glanced at it, but he didn't have any thoughts of going deeper into the sword tomb. With a wave of his hand, he took out the jade slip, and immersed his divine sense into it to take a look. He smiled and said, "This young master wants to make some contributions to the sword tomb, so I'll plant a purple jasmine flower." After he finished speaking, he very carefully identified the direction, and flew along the edge of the purple jasmine flower towards a slightly higher mountain. After flying for an hour, night had already arrived. Xiao Hua landed on the ground and looked around. Although this place was slightly higher than the other places, the purple jasmine flowers were still everywhere. Coincidentally, there was a small protrusion in the middle of the purple jasmine flowers, which seemed to be a large boulder. Xiao Hua strolled over, and along the way, several purple jasmine flowers brushed past his daoist robe. "This place is great." Xiao Hua floated up and sat on the boulder. He looked around and closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. The night gradually dispersed, and the entire world was shrouded in darkness. The originally purple sword tomb was now emitting bursts of blood red. This blood red replaced the allure of the purple during the day, and everything under the pitch-black night sky was dyed red. Oh! Purple, at night, it becomes the color of blood. Xiao Hua extended his hand into the sea of blood and was rather puzzled. However, as far as his eyes could see, his surroundings were blood red. Moreover, that blood red was speckled, and it was several times weaker than the brilliance of the fireflies. When Xiao Hua's gaze stopped at the purple jasmine flower beside him, he understood. The purple color of the purple jasmine flower during the day was its petals, and these purple petals were wrapped up. Now that it was night, the purple color of the petals could no longer be seen clearly. However, the blood-red color of the petals could still be seen. This blood-red color contained a brilliance, and naturally, during the night, it was the same as the petals. Thus, this part of the world was dyed in the color of blood. Magnificent, sorrowful. Xiao Hua sighed with emotion for a moment, then closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. Another hour later, the night was already as dark as ink. The night wind blew over the sword catacomb, and the purple jasmine flowers swayed along with the night wind. The color of blood was even more like a rippling sea of blood. Xiao Hua's body flickered with a faint, almost invisible protective golden light. He was like a small boat in the sea of blood, drifting indeterminately. -9. Chapter 2571. There seemed to be a breeze around Xiao Hua. This breeze was different from the sound of ordinary wind, and it was also completely different from the night wind. The night wind only blew the purple jasmine flowers and raised the blood waves of the sword mound. It couldn't shake Xiao Hua's protective brilliance, and it couldn't even stir Xiao Hua's tranquil state of mind. However, this breeze quietly arrived and very strangely blew into the light protecting his body. Xiao Hua's heart set off ripples. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a rather desolate feeling came from his skin. This was something Xiao Hua normally couldn't sense. Could it be that there's something else in this sword mound? Xiao Hua's eyes were like stars. He coldly swept his left side, and then closed them again. Open. Xiao Hua gathered his Buddhist consciousness between his eyes. There was a mark of the previous Dharma eye. Generally, soul threads would pass through here. Although the delirium Dharma eye was useful, Xiao Hua basically didn't know how to control it, so he always wanted to use it to control the Dharma eye. But this time, Xiao Hua was disappointed. The Dharma eye mark didn't open because of his mantra. Instead, there was a piercing pain coming from his glabella. Forget it. I'm afraid that this young master's luck has been used up. Xiao Hua shook his head. It seems that this Dharma eye mark isn't easy to control. I'll wait until I have a corresponding secret technique. Thinking, Xiao Hua opened his left hand and waited for the delirium Dharma eye to open. Sure enough, threads of blue brilliance mixed with silver brilliance drifted around him. It was very obvious. Furthermore, there were strands of cotton-like green brilliance floating around his body. Xiao Hua was already familiar with the blue and silver brilliance. It should be the water and metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth. But that green brilliance wasn't the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It seemed to be gathering with a purpose. Xiao Hua even looked into the distance and saw that there was actually even more green brilliance gathering around him. Seeing this, Xiao Hua already understood in his heart. No wonder Jiu said that this place wasn't suitable for cultivators to come. Not only is the metal attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth somewhat troublesome, but the swordsman's vengeful soul also has an impact on cultivators' cultivation. If it wasn't this young master's fault, if it was someone else, their cultivation would be disturbed and their cultivation would also be damaged. Finished thinking, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and was about to slap his forehead. Just as he was about to release the Buddha's Surya, his heart moved, and his mind entered the mysterious dark clouds. At this moment, Little White Soul was dancing rhythmically, bringing Xiao Hua's trace of primordial spirit to the top of the sky. Little White, I'll take you out to eat something, Xiao Hua said in his heart. Then, the soul thread wrapped around Little White. Although Little White heard Xiao Hua's voice, it didn't open its eyes. Even the moment the soul thread touched its body, Little White's soul slightly trembled. However, when the soul thread flickered, the rhythmic soul power sent Little White out of its body. Roar. Little White immediately raised its head and let out a weak dragon roar. Immediately, its entire soul body danced like the sky. This dance was very normal in the sky, but in this night sky, it was completely different. Following the rhythm of the undulations, circles of undulations slowly rippled out with Little White's soul body as the center. An indescribable suction force was born along with the undulations, spreading far away. Obviously, the wandering souls that were attracted by Xiao Hua were immediately frightened when they encountered the undulations. A kind of instinct was born from the wandering souls, just like a drowning person, trying their best to escape from the undulations. However, the undulations were like a firm fishing hook. Once it caught a fish or shrimp, no matter how big or small it was, it wouldn't let it go. Those strands of green brilliance of different sizes followed the suction force and entered Little White's soul body. Every time a strand of wandering soul entered, Little White's soul body would emit a faint light. This little white dragon is different from the fire ape's soul. It doesn't need to devour, and can directly use its soul body to devour wandering souls. This seems to be somewhat similar to my immortal body bestowment technique. Seeing that Little White's soul body was becoming brighter and brighter, and was beginning to condense bit by bit, Xiao Hua was relieved. He continued to sit cross-legged and began his own homework, letting Little White Dragon nourish itself here till the night was very long, and the night was also very short. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes again, the horizon was already slightly bright. Little White Dragon seemed to be a little tired as it sat in the air. After a night of nourishment, there weren't any obvious changes, but the condensation of the soul body could be felt even when Xiao Hua released the soul strands. More than 10 days passed in a row. Xiao Hua rarely had a quiet time to cultivate. Other than releasing Little White Dragon's soul body at night, he had been cultivating quietly. From time to time, he would take out the invisible golden sword and use it according to the sword technique in Qin Jian's memory. Although this invisible sword wasn't as marvelous as Qin Jian's, it had the advantage of being invisible. Xiao Hua had the experience of using the execution dream, so using this invisible sword was very easy. Of course, in Xiao Hua's space, there was a jade slip given to him by the arrogant 10th layer Qi refining disciple Yu Tong when he sneaked out of the Huanhua sect. Xiao Hua also took it out when he was cultivating. Sure enough, the layer of mysterious restriction gradually disappeared not long after the jade slip was taken out. However, when Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through it, he didn't find anything special. There was only a location, a special symbol, and a simple technique. Hey, is this guy sending this young master to his death? Xiao Hua looked at it, then very carelessly threw it into the space. This was because he noticed an extremely special phenomenon. This was the Ganoderma horse. Before Xiao Hua sent the Ganoderma horse into the space, the Ganoderma horse was somewhat injured. However, it still maintained the appearance of a Ganoderma horse. After Xiao Hua sent it into the space, The Ganoderma horse actually reverted back to the appearance of a 10,000-year-old Lingji. It could no longer transform. Could it be that I should first go to the thunder that Daya encountered? Although the Ganoderma horse didn't encounter any heavenly thunder when it reverted back to its original state, Xiaohua still had some understanding in his heart. Perhaps this young master's space, the rules are still a bit strange. Thinking about the growth of the spiritual grass in his space, Xiaohua could only bitterly smile. He returned his thoughts to cultivation. His current realm was only foundation establishment. The distance from touching the heavenly Tao was really too far. What was the use of thinking too much? Next, Xiaohua was happy again. He finally found the secret technique to use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords at the same time. That mysterious sword cultivation secret technique nearly doubled the speed of the execution dream and mountain splitter flying sword. It far exceeded Xiaohua's previous expectations. When Xiaohua was investigating Zhong Haoren that day, because of the critical moment, Xiaohua didn't have any other divine ability to use. He could only use the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that he had just comprehended a little. The results were surprisingly good. Not only was the speed astonishing, but the strength also increased. It actually injured Yun Zhaochong's flame dragon body, forcing Yun Zhaochong to not dare to fight and flee in panic. This is just two butterflies fluttering in the air. Xiaohua looked at the execution dream and mountain splitter flying swords that were like two cheerful butterflies, attached to each other and pulling each other along. They fluttered among the purple flowers. He couldn't help but think, if the 9 sword pills were repaired, then 9 stars would transit the sun. Then, what kind of momentum would that be? Those are the flying swords of Li Shoubai, the so-called sword immortal. I reckon that even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to block one of them. When he thought of being able to kill a nascent soul cultivator in the future, Xiaohua's mouth couldn't close. Although he really didn't know how long this future was, if there was a path of hope, would he still be afraid of thorns and dangers? Could it be that Marshal Kuan's jade slip is wrong? When Xiaohua calmed down, he frowned and looked into the distance. Right now, the swordsmen and cultivators must be fighting a bloody battle to the death. Li Zongbao and Xiao Maro aside, what about Fairy Hongxia? If I can stay by her side and block some wind and rain for her, that's also good. As he thought, Xiaohua's gaze landed on the purple flowers again. Could it be that the feelings of cultivators are like this? Although there is mutual affection, there are also separation and reunion involuntarily. If two people have feelings for each other for a long time, why would they be together every day and night? However, the words were so pleasant to hear. Putting aside the dangers of the Xiaoyu continent, without each other's protection, it was extremely easy to fall. It was inevitable that regret would arise in his heart. Even if there was no danger, a person's heart was fickle. It was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be any changes. Dui Chimeng loved Kui Hongshan wholeheartedly, but when others obstructed her, it was inevitable that her heart would be obstructed. If I hadn't killed Tu Hong and pushed both of them into the middle foundation establishment stage, allowing her to see the foundation of my myriad Thunder Valley, I'm afraid that Dui Chimeng, who had experienced this unforeseen event, would have some thoughts in her heart. Of course, these are all my wild guesses. Perhaps Dui Chimeng is as loyal as Kui Hongshan, just like Fairy Hongxia in the past. I was only a qi refinement cultivator, but she liked me so much that she didn't hide her preferences in front of everyone in the Feather Immortal Assembly. With such a wife, what else can I ask for in this life? The corners of Xiaohua's mouth secretly revealed a trace of a smile. And shwe, the most. At this moment, Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and his figure flew up from the big rock. As his figure gradually flew into the sky, his appearance and figure gradually changed, revealing the appearance of a Marshal Kuan. In the northeast direction, 2 faint figures appeared on the horizon. When they got closer, 2 divine senses swept over. As soon as the divine senses swept over Xiaohua, they immediately locked onto him. After circling around for a while, they withdrew. Xiaohua quietly stood in mid-air. He didn't release his divine senses, only releasing his Buddhist sense to scan the area around him for fear that the newcomers would have some hidden tricks. However, when the two people flew closer, Xiao Hua could already see clearly that both of them were tall and thin. However, one was an old man with white hair and a beard, and the other was a cultivator dressed in camouflage robe. Xiao Hua frowned slightly, but then his brows relaxed. The old man with white hair and a beard was in the early gold core stage. When Xiao Hua was being chased by Reverend Jingyu, he had used his Buddhist sense to see him. He was the disciple who delivered the flying boat to Reverend Jingyu. -9. Chapter 2572. That's Hu Guanqing. Xiao Hua could see the arrogance on Hu Guanqing's face from afar. He could imagine how Hu Guanqing had treated Zhong Tianyaro back in Zhongling Mountain Village. He had forced a golden core cultivator to hand over the materials he used to repair his ancestral artifact. How could an ordinary cultivator be so ruthless? However, although Hu Guanqing's arrogance could not be concealed, he was doing his best to conceal it. There was a trace of respect on his face, and he even flew slightly slower than the Mi Yarrow cultivator, as if he was letting the latter go first. Strange, where did this Mi Yarrow cultivator come from? How could he make Hu Guanqing act so modestly? Could he be a nascent soul senior? Xiao Hua muttered to himself as he looked at the Mi Yarrow cultivator. His heart trembled, but this thought only flashed through his mind. Did a nascent soul senior need to wear a Mi Yarrow cultivator? However, Xiao Hua suddenly complained in his heart, damn it, Hu Guanqing brought this person here. Even if he's wearing a Mi Yarrow cultivator, who knows if Marshal Kuan has come in contact with him? It's fine if he doesn't know him, but if he does, how am I supposed to talk to him? Forget it. A trace of ruthlessness flashed through Xiao Hua's eyes. Who cares who he is? Since he's here, he can't blame me for being ruthless. I can't be bothered to say anything to them. I'll just kill them all. Thus, Xiao Hua rushed towards the two. The Dream Executioner and the Mountain Splitter were already in his mouth, ready to kill them in one blow. However, just as Xiao Hua was about to attack, Hu Guanqing suddenly flew a few feet forward and transmitted his voice, Marshal Kuan, don't put on a poker face. This is an important person. Hurry up and welcome him. Don't be rude. Yes. When Xiao Hua heard this, he hurriedly put away the two flying swords and replied. The ruthlessness on his face was replaced by a smile, and he stepped forward respectfully. Putting on an act. Xiao Hua liked it the most. Being respectful was his specialty. How could he not join in the fun? Seeing how obedient Marshal Kuan was, Hu Guanju was also slightly stunned. However, he was also very happy. With a smile on his face, he said in a clear voice, Marshal Kuan, why aren't you coming over to greet the Alliance leader's envoy? Alliance Master? Xiao Hua was stunned. For a moment, he didn't even know which Alliance Master or which envoy it was. However, he quickly lowered his head and bowed in midair. Imperial Thunder Sect's Marshal Kuan greets the envoy. All right, forget it. The emissary's face seemed to show a smile like a spring breeze. He sped up and flew in front of Xiao Hua. He very gently helped Xiao Hua up and said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Kuan is too polite. I've heard of Fellow Daoist's name long ago, but I never had the chance to meet you. Now that I've seen you today, you're indeed a dragon among men. You're exactly the person the Alliance Master values. Who is this? He only said that he was an emissary and didn't even mention his name. He kept calling him Alliance Master. Which Alliance Master is this Alliance Master? Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, but he still humbly smiled apologetically and said, I am just a small gold core cultivator, how could I enter the Alliance Master's eyes? Only a cultivator with an outstanding cultivation like the envoy can be the Alliance Master's right-hand man. Ha 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 tilde Marshal Kuan, oh Marshal Kuan, when I told you about the Alliance Master that day, you didn't believe me. You even laughed and scolded me for being a bluff. Now, you've thrown me aside as soon as you see the envoy. You're actually so intimate with the envoy. This is really beyond my expectations. Hu Guanfu said with a chuckle, as if to express his presence. However, Xiao Hua's heart thumped again. He knew that things weren't good. From Marshal Kuan's jade slip, He saw that Marshal Kuan had handed over the refining method of the Thunderbolt to Hu Guanfu here. He also learned that Hu Guanfu had the materials to repair the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. That was why he came here to meet Hu Guanfu. Moreover, he also had the idea of attacking Hu Guanfu as soon as he saw him. He didn't think much about the relationship between the two of them. However, now that he heard Hu Guanfu's words, it seemed, the two of them weren't as simple as he thought. There was actually a so-called alliance master and envoy involved. What exactly was going on? Fellow Daoist who has always been a man of his word. How can I take your words seriously? If I didn't see the envoy with my own eyes, how could I believe you? Marshal Kuan said with a cold snort. Fellow Daoist Kuan the envoy clapped his hands and took out a triangular token from his storage bag. He handed it over and said with a smile, "This is the Alliance Master's token. You can check it." "No need, no need," Xiao Hua said as he stretched out his hand. He was very curious about who the Alliance Master was. However, just as his hand was about to touch the token, the envoy pulled his hand back and didn't allow him to touch it. At this moment, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He pondered whether or not he should snatch the item. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. Alliance leader, the leader of an alliance. He was probably more powerful than any cultivation sect. He couldn't even afford to offend a sect, so how could he dare to offend the leader of an alliance? He just wanted Hu Guanfu's materials to refine the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. So what if he didn't take Hu Guanfu's life today? This Hu Guanfu is lucky. Xiao Hua thought and smiled awkwardly. He swept out his divine sense and immersed it into the token. Buzz. In Xiao Hua's divine sense, a mountain-like pressure came from the token. A large full word flashed and appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. Damn it, this is too powerful. Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his divine sense. His face was a little pale. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, a smile flashed across the envoy's face. He flipped his hand and put the token into his bag. He said, "Fellow Daoist Kuan, you have seen the token. Do you have any other questions?" No. Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "The Alliance Master's methods are indeed powerful. I can't compare. I've really learned something." The envoy nodded with a smile and didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua glanced at Hu Guanfu, who had a complacent expression on his face, and said with a smile, "Lord Envoy, I wonder why you came all the way here. Do you have any orders for me?" Although Xiao Hua didn't seem to care too much about it, he felt as if he wanted to stretch out a small hand in his heart and pull out some secrets about Hu Guanju from this emissary's mouth. Unexpectedly, the envoy still smiled and shook his head. He said, "I don't have anything to do. I just saw that the sword cultivators outside the Sky Patrol City were fighting with our cultivators. I found a job and came to take a look on behalf of the Alliance Master. What a coincidence. I came to the Sword Tomb because I met you. I thought, Fellow Daoist Kuan is good, so I led you here." Hu Guanfu said with a smile. "The key is that I heard Fellow Daoist who mentioned Fellow Daoist Kuan of the Imperial Thunder Sect. I admire him." The envoy seized the opportunity to flatter Marshal Kuan. "Thank you for thinking so highly of me." Xiao Hua saw that the envoy was tight-lipped and knew that it was unlikely to get anything out of him. He said to Hu Guanfu, "Since Fellow Daoist who has come to keep the appointment, have you prepared those things?" "Of course." Hu Guanfu didn't seem to suspect anything. He took out a storage bag from his sleeve and handed it to Xiao Hua. He said with a smile, "The things you want are inside. Take a look." "All right." Xiao Hua took the storage bag and looked inside with his divine consciousness. He saw that there were only sleeve jade slips and a lot of refining materials. There weren't any materials for refining the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. After he took a look at the jade slips, he realized that the jade slips contained some refining secret techniques. One of the jade slips recorded the method to repair the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. "Damn it, I see." Xiao Hua cursed. It turned out that Marshal Kuan wanted to use the refining method of the Thunderbolt to exchange for the refining secret techniques and the method to repair the Grand Cosmos Shifting Token. He didn't want to exchange the materials for the grand cosmos shifting token. What should I do now? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. You have to take a good look at these secret techniques. There are some refining methods for flying Dharma artifacts that Master collected with great difficulty, Hu Guanfu said with a smile. Did you bring the things that Master wanted? Of course. Xiao Hua was also helpless. He stretched out his hand, took out a storage pouch that he had prepared a long time ago, and handed it over. Very good. A pleased look appeared on Hu Guanqin's face, but he then asked curiously, didn't you say that you've gathered some other materials? Why didn't you bring them? Xiao Hua understood that Hu Guanfu was talking about the materials for repairing the grand cosmos shifting token. He thought for a while and said awkwardly, I was going to the Seven Extremes mountain range. However, I remembered my agreement with fellow Hu Guanfu and came here in a hurry. I forgot those things in the Sky Patrol City's station. How could you be so careless? Hu Guanfu frowned. How could you not bring those things with you? Xiao Hua's face turned cold when he saw that Hu Guanfu was blaming him. Forget it. I'll go with you in a while. Hu Guanfu waved his hand. Master is very concerned about these things. You'd better bring them here as soon as possible. Xiao Hua was moved when Hu Guanfu mentioned Daoist Jing Yu. He was about to speak when Hu Guanfu seemed to have thought of something and transmitted his voice. That's right. About the matter I told you last time, let's stop for the time being. That guy hid his strength too well. I didn't expect his cultivation to be so powerful. He actually... Cough, cough. I'm sure you've seen it too. He's made many contributions in the Dao Cultivator War. If you act rashly, you'll disrupt Master's plan. I've always wanted to send you a message talisman about this. However, this is a serious matter. It's better to tell you personally. Fellow Hu Guanfu, you're talking about. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. He seemed to have sensed something and asked deliberately. Hu Guanfu looked at him strangely. He smiled and transmitted his voice. Of course it's about the Foundation Establishment disciple of your Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiao Hua, so you've already forgotten about him. Haha, that's good too. I don't want to alert the enemy, so it's because of this guy. Xiao Hua understood at once. He had thought about it for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. Today, he actually got the answer he never expected. -9. Chapter 2573. Up until his death, Marshal Kuan did not tell Xiao Hua why he was so ruthless towards Xiao Hua. Marshal Kuan did not even mention anything about Kuan Fei Yan. However, from Guanju's mouth, Xiao Hua had already heard it clearly. It was definitely this fellow who had informed Marshal Kuan and wanted Marshal Kuan to kill him or snatch the incomplete Grand Universe shifting token from his hand. Xiao Hua could even feel from Hu Guanju's mouth that it was not necessarily immortal Jing Yu who had instructed Marshal Kuan to kill him, but Hu Guanju, who always liked to take credit from immortal Jing Yu, had asked Marshal Kuan to kill him. Xiao Hua could even vaguely guess that the person who had intercepted and killed the thunder-controlling sect disciples after the Feather Immortal gathering was probably Hu Guanju. A hint of coldness flashed through the eyes of Xiao Hua, who had always been ruthless to his enemies. He forcefully suppressed his desire to kill Hu Guanni and then pretended as if nothing had happened. He nodded and said, "This Kuan understands. Yes, Master has already instructed us not to interfere in this matter. He has his own ways." Hu Guanxian didn't notice anything at all, and instructed. "I understand." Xiao Hua asked again, "When will your master arrive? Now that we have reached the critical point of the war, I feel that the cultivators of my sect will suffer a great loss. We need the nascent soul masters to come to Sentry City as soon as possible." "Master." "Ha ha." Hu Guanju raised his eyebrows and a trace of imperceptible surprise flashed across his eyes. He smiled and said, "My master is ready. He will immediately rush to Sentry City as soon as the sect leader gives the order. At that time, fellow Daoist Kuan will have the chance to meet my master and have him guide you on your refining skills." "Yes, yes." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "This Kuan admires your master's artifact refining skills." If this Kuan can obtain some pointers from him, this Kuan will definitely benefit greatly. Well said, well said. Hu Guanju glanced at the emissary and opened his mouth slightly, as if he was transmitting his voice. The emissary nodded, but his face was covered in fog. Let's go, fellow Kuan. Hu Guanju waved his hand and said, the emissary and I will accompany you back to Sentry City. We will wait outside the city. Take out your storage bag. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. He flew up and said with a smile, I, Kuan, will lead the way. Fellow Daoist Kuan, please. The emissary smiled and raised his hand. His figure also flew up and landed on Xiao Hua's right. Hu Guanju also flew up and landed on Xiao Hua's left. Oh, by the way, fellow Daoist Kuan. As Xiao Hua flew for a while, Hu Guanmo suddenly remembered something. He patted his storage bag and said, before I left, my master asked me to bring you a magic treasure. It's what you wanted when you went there. It's just that my master hasn't been able to successfully refine it until the beginning of this year. I'll give it to fellow Daoist now. Hehe, many thanks to your honorable master. Xiao Hua was happy. He didn't think that he would be able to obtain a transcendent treasure before he left, so how could he not be happy? Still, he said, that old man is really. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw Hu Guanqing take out something from his storage bag. It was not a Dharma treasure, but a spirit talisman with extremely powerful dharmic powers. Xiao Hua was very familiar with the magical power fluctuations of this spiritual talisman. Wasn't it the protective spiritual talisman that Li Chengxiu had used that day, the Hand of Nascent Soul? This is bad. How did this guy discover this young master's flaw? Seeing this, Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. He saw that Hu Guanju had been waiting for this moment. As soon as the Hand of Nascent Soul took out his storage bag, he immediately activated his dharmic powers. A hurricane was born from the spirit talisman, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within 1,000 feet rushed into the spirit talisman. The spirit talisman borrowed the force of the wind and suddenly expanded. In an instant, it was several feet in size. Moreover, the Hand of Nascent Soul flashed with brilliance, and a powerful restrictive force appeared spontaneously. Looking at the emissary to Xiao Hua's right, he waved his hand, and a ray of golden light flew out from his hand. A small palm-sized pagoda flew into the air. The small pagoda's brilliance was unusually dazzling. When the spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged by the Hand of Nascent Soul swept past the small pagoda, half of it was absorbed by the small pagoda. Strands of jade were born from the edges of the small pagoda, and a suction force that was not inferior to the restrictive force of the Hand of Nascent Soul was born from the bottom of the small pagoda. The force rotated and was about to envelop Xiao Hua. Hiss! Xiao Hua was shocked and immediately moved. His figure suddenly flashed, and almost an afterimage appeared behind him. His figure was as strange as the wind. Hu Guanqing had deliberately distanced himself from him by several feet, but in the blink of an eye, he was already closing in on him. Woo! Seeing that he was getting closer, Xiao Hua raised his hand, took out the wishful staff, and swung it at Hu Guanqing's head. Xiao Hua's wind escape was too fast. Although Hu Guanqing made the first move, Xiao Hua arrived first. Before Hu Guanqing's Hand of Nascent Soul could move, the wishful staff was already in front of Hu Guanqing's eyes. Hu Guanqing had no choice but to activate the talisman with one hand and slap his forehead with the other. A dazzling sword light flew out and met Xiao Hua's wishful staff head-on. With a cracking sound, the flying sword was hit by the wishful staff, and a crack appeared on the flying sword. Hiss! Hu Guanqing's face flushed red. His figure quickly retreated. He wanted to escape from Xiao Hua's wishful staff. Attack! Xiao Hua shouted. Instead of advancing, he retreated and flew toward the emissary who had taken out his magic treasure. What is he doing? Hu Guanqing was slightly taken aback, but his heart still relaxed. He hurriedly activated the Hand of Nascent Soul. However, just as Xiao Hua turned to attack the emissary, two green and red flying swords flew out of Xiao Hua's mouth. One in front and one behind, they chased each other and pierced toward Hu Guanqing with incomparable speed. Ah! Flying swords! Hu Guanqing didn't have time to retrieve his flying swords. When he saw Xiao Hua attack with flying swords, he couldn't help but be taken aback. But when he saw the two flying swords piercing toward him at an unimaginable speed, Hu Guanqing was scared out of his wit. Dodge. Hu Guanqing only had this thought in his mind. He didn't even have time to activate the talisman. However, the distance between him and Xiao Hua was too close, and the flying speed of the Dream Executioner and the Mountain Splitter was too fast. In addition, the strength of the two flying swords was too great. Just as the thought of dodging arose in Hu Guanqing's mind, the two swords had already pierced his body. With a PU, the Dream Executioner was the first to strike. Hu Guanqing's protective golden light flashed and was pierced through by the Dream Executioner. Woo! With a flash of brilliance, the Dream Executioner was blocked by Hu Guanqing's protective magic treasure. Although the huge impact made Hu Guanqing feel incomparable pain, the Dream Executioner was blocked in the end. Hiss! Immediately after, the second sword light arrived. The power of the Mountain Splitter increased by a lot under the Dream Executioner's cooperation. The flashing protective magic treasure only resisted for a few breaths of time before the light was extinguished and the Mountain Splitter pierced through. Pu. With a muffled sound, the Mountain Splitter pierced through Hu Guanqing's chest and came out from his back. Hu Guanqing, an early golden core cultivator, was so easily killed by Xiao Hua. The swollen nascent soul hand fell along with Hu Guanqing's corpse. Like a deflated bubble, it rapidly shrank and finally turned into a talisman that fell beside the corpse. Xiao Hua turned around and attacked the envoy. He didn't even check on Hu Guanqing. Since he attacked, he absolutely couldn't let the envoy escape, even if he was the Martial Kuan. Who would have thought that the thing that made Xiao Hua's soul fly out of his body would happen? Seeing Xiao Hua raise the wishful staff, the enchanting envoy's eyes suddenly widened. A brilliant brilliance flashed through his eyes. Then, he cried out in extreme shock, Who are you? You actually know the transfiguration technique? As he spoke, the shocked envoy waved his hand. The small pagoda quickly fell, and his figure strangely floated up. Xiao Hua's speed was extremely fast, but the envoy's small pagoda had already been raised and blocked in front of the wishful staff. The suction force of the small pagoda was amazing. Xiao Hua's body shook continuously, and the brilliance of his protective body flashed. But when the wishful staff hit the suction force, the small pagoda flew out. At this time, the envoy's figure was like smoke and also like a ghost. He only flashed a few times in the air and chased after the small pagoda. He grabbed the small pagoda in his hand, and then without looking back, a trace of green smoke appeared around his body, and his whole figure disappeared. Where do you think you're going? Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. This was the first time he had seen such a strange flying technique. Moreover, this emissary had actually seen through his disguise technique with a single sentence. How could this not surprise him? How could he let the envoy escape? Xiao Hua yelled, his figure flashed, and a stick hit the place where the emissary disappeared. Unfortunately, the stick hit empty air, and not even a hair of the envoy was hit. Xiao Hua was anxious. His figure also flashed and disappeared, as if he was chasing after the envoy. However, in a moment, Xiao Hua's figure appeared one zhong away, and his face was full of confusion and anxiety. Who is this envoy? He actually has such a powerful flying technique. Xiao Hua was really anxious. If I had known this earlier, I would have killed this person first. Or at least not reveal any trace of the wishful staff. However, now that things had come to this, where was there a special medicine for regret? Even if Xiao Hua opened his illusion breaker eyes and looked around, he still could not find the whereabouts of the envoy. Xiao Hua snorted coldly, and his heart was still unwilling. He felt that his illusion breaker eyes should be able to see where the envoy fled, but he did not know how to check. Even if you know that I am pretending to be Martial Kuan, so what? You don't know who I am, Xiao Hua said coldly. This envoy did not go to the Dao Sword battlefield to help, but ran here. There must be something shameful. This so-called alliance leader was probably something that couldn't be seen in public. I am not even afraid of a nascent soul cultivator, so why would I be afraid of some bullshit alliance leader? Thinking, Xiao Hua flew back to the place where he had killed Hu Guanmu. With a wave of his hand, The intact nascent soul hand talisman fell into his hand. Xiao Hua looked at it and carefully stored it in his space. -9. Chapter 2574. After that, Xiao Hua picked up Hu Guanda's storage bag and checked it. Sure enough, not only were there materials to repair the Grand Cosmos shifting token, there were also materials to refine the Thunderbolt, and many other precious materials for refining tool. H, I didn't come here in vain. Xiao Hua snorted coldly and pointed his finger. A wisp of true samadhi fire fell on the corpse, burning it until only a golden core was left. Looking at the golden core that was only the size of a grain of rice, Xiao Hua sneered, "You're just an early-stage golden core cultivator, yet you dared to scheme against a middle-stage golden core cultivator. You're really tired of living." However, how did this guy discover my flaw? This was something that Xiao Hua couldn't figure out. Xiao Hua originally wanted to call Goldie out of the space, but he looked around vigilantly and was still not at ease. With a wave of his hand, he sent the golden core into the space. What made Xiao Hua flabbergasted was that Goldie, who had always liked golden cores, sniffed this little golden core and didn't pay attention to it at all. It turned its head to the side. Oh my god, it doesn't even care about golden cores. Xiao Hua smacked his lips and thought, however, the quality of this Hu Guanda's golden core is indeed not good. No wonder Goldie doesn't like it. Don't waste it. Xiao Hua thought as he sent the golden core to the duck floating on the water. The duck opened its tender yellow beak and swallowed the golden core into its stomach without even opening its eyes. After Xiao Hua looked around and found no flaws, he turned around and wanted to fly away. However, just as he turned around, his gaze fell on a stone that was piled up in the shape of the word Quan 100 feet away. Hey! This is... Xiao Hua's eyes lit up as he suddenly thought of something. He hurriedly waved his hand and took out a jade slip from the space. He immersed his divine sense in it and looked at it for a moment. Then, he flew to the stone and grabbed it. A layer of silver light appeared on the stone, and a palm-sized square cauldron appeared. Strange. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and said curiously, "There are strange things every year, but there are especially many this year. This thing, why is it still here? It seems, dozens of years have passed, right?" After looking at the small cauldron overflowing with silver light for a moment, Xiao Hua tried to throw the jade slip into it. Buzz! The small cauldron began to emit a brilliance, and a wave of faint smoke emerged from the jade slip. Soon after, the jade slip flew out of the small cauldron, and the small cauldron once again turned into a silver light that landed on the stone, and slowly disappeared. Looking at the jade slip that was emitting smoke, Xiao Hua immersed his divine sense into it. A moment later, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a hint of understanding. He looked inside the sword tomb and muttered to himself, "What is this jade system trying to sell?" Young Master remembered that he had evil intentions towards Young Master that day. Why did he come to the sword tomb? Since I'm here, I'll go take a look. What kind of waves can a Foundation establishment brat cause? Besides, my whereabouts have already been exposed by that bullshit emissary. If I don't go out and hide, should I go back to Sky Patrol City and walk right into their trap? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's figure moved like lightning and flew in the direction indicated by the jade slip. After Xiao Hua's figure disappeared for an hour, a wave of fluctuation flashed in mid-air, and Xiao Hua's figure appeared there again. His divine sense once again swept across the area within 100 miles. Damn it, could it be that the emissary really left? Xiao Hua actually made a feint and returned here again to see if the emissary was hiding somewhere and not escaping at that time. Seeing that there was nothing wrong, Xiao Hua was helpless and could only resentfully fly up again. After more than half a day, a faint figure appeared beside a low-lying mountain rock a few miles away from here. It was the emissary who had disappeared. However, at this time, a trace of horror appeared on the emissary's pale face. I really didn't expect this. This guy actually knows the transfiguration technique. Moreover, the thing in his hand seems to be a demonic artifact. This demonic artifact is different from ordinary demonic artifact. It can actually send the demon subduing pagoda flying. This guy. Who is he? However, Since he can kill Marshal Kuan, he must have some grudges with the thunder-controlling sect. He might even have a grudge with a Dao sect cultivator. The emissary's eyes turned. Yes, he used a sword cultivator's secret technique to kill Huguan Mu, but his flying sword seems to be different from a sword cultivator's. Maybe he's a bird cultivator? Or a beast cultivator? It seems that only Huan country's swordsmen are active in the vicinity of the sword catacomb. This guy is undoubtedly a swordsman. The emissary was still in a state of shock. Seeing that there was no more movement nearby, he quietly flew up, still thinking to himself. But as he flew, his body suddenly shook again, as if he had thought of something. That's not right. If this guy is a swordsman, why is he waiting here alone for Huguan Mu? Besides, why does he need so many of Huguan Mu's refining materials? The most inconceivable thing is that when I saw this guy, I already used my divine sense to investigate him. He is undoubtedly a Dao sect cultivator. When did the transfiguration technique reach such a miraculous level? Who on earth is this guy? The emissary was really scratching his head. This won't do. Such a strange cultivator, no matter if he's a cultivator or a sword cultivator, will be detrimental to my heavenly devil sect and my sect master. I must report this to Lord Sect Master. As he spoke, the emissary got rid of the mimi. It was a young cultivator dressed in an ordinary Daoist robe, with delicate features and an extremely refined expression on his face. He looked like he was in his 20s. Who was this emissary? Wasn't he the deputy sect master Zhong Zhihao that heavenly devil sect's Zhong Qingxiao had personally appointed? After Zhong Zhihao thought about it, his figure immediately turned into green smoke and disappeared. After waiting for an hour, he flew out from a stone crack in a snowy plain. His originally pale face was even more bloodless. Then, Zhong Zhihao looked at the sky and said in a low voice, Xiong Huasong sent a message, saying that he found clues to the grand universe-shifting token. Damn it, isn't it that Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder sect? Wouldn't it be fine if he directly killed him and took the token? Why did he have to make this trip? This Xiao Hua is also the reincarnation of a praying mantis. He should have died in the netherworld. Why is he still alive now? If that Zhu Chenghe knew, wouldn't he desperately cover it up? Ha ha ha, things are getting more and more interesting. Yes, it was indeed interesting. Not only did Zhong Zhihao have such thoughts, but Zhong Qingxiao, who was far away in the Lian country, also had such thoughts. At this time, Zhong Qingxiao was sitting on a hill. The hill was neither tall nor big, only a few feet high and several feet wide. Above the hill, the bright scenic bell emitted an orange-yellow brilliance that covered Zhong Qingxiao and a jade table. On top of the jade table, there was a strange wine bottle and several jade cups. The light red wine in the jade cups emitted a clear wine fragrance that filled the entire light barrier. Zhong Qingxiao lazily sat on the white blanket, his left hand holding a jade cup. Just as the cup left his mouth, those slightly squinted eyes, the smiling corners of his mouth, and the slight tapping of the index and middle fingers of his right hand on the jade table, all of them showed that he was enjoying himself. This small mound was just one of the many yellow hills of varying sizes in this boundless wasteland. Zhong Qingxiao didn't know how many similar mounds there were in front of her, but she didn't know how many of them there were behind her. Xiao Hua, this guy, what is he doing? He actually killed the Imperial Thunder sect's Marshal Kuan? Zhong Qingxiao naturally received Zhong Zhihao's secret report. The corner of his mouth faintly flickered with mockery. This guy even said that I was vicious and merciless. What about himself? He didn't even put his own master in his eyes and easily killed them. Is this the attitude of a junior? Moreover, this is a great battle of Dao cultivators. Your hands are itchy, can't you kill a few more sword cultivators? Even if Marshal Kuan wants to curry favor with Daoist Jing Yu and has some thoughts about you, but Ayo, could it be that Marshal Kuan has already made his move? Zhong Qingxiao suddenly came to a realization. Damn, this little junior brother of mine is really amazing. Marshal Kuan is a golden core cultivator, and he already made his move. Didn't this guy Xiao Hua just build his foundation? He can actually escape from a golden core cultivator's palm. Not simple, not simple. If it wasn't for Xiao Hua, that whatever stick, even I, wouldn't have guessed that Marshal Kuan was actually Xiao Hua in disguise. Where did Xiao Hua's disguise technique come from? He's actually much more powerful than I am. It seems like my little junior brother's background isn't simple. Hehe, fortunately, this is my little junior brother. If he was my enemy, humph, let alone an enemy, with such a person on Xiaoyu continent, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fortunately. Also what does our Vice Alliance leader Luo want to do? He actually has dealings with people of my demon sect. My heavenly demon sect's vice sect leader Yin Meng seems to be under the Vice Alliance leader. Or maybe he's here to contact Vice Alliance leader Luo? Vice sect leader Yin has been very busy recently. Unfortunately, his Grand Cosmos shifting token has always been in my little junior brother's storage bag. This guy can't catch up to Xiao Hua's fleeing footsteps no matter how hard he tries. Should I tell him that Xiao Hua went to the sword tomb? Or maybe Xiong Huasong will tell him without me informing him? Not necessarily. Zhong Qingxiao shook her head again. I'm afraid Xiong Huasong doesn't know about Yin Meng, right? Xiong Huasong can only tell Zhong Zhihao about Xiao Hua, but he can't directly inform Yin Meng. But that's not right. According to Xiao Hua, he obtained this Grand Cosmos shifting token at the Feather Immortal Assembly. This thing should have been sent to the Changbai sect for Daoist Jingyu, right? This Xiong Huasong is a cultivator of the Profound Sky sect, so how did he know that the Grand Cosmos shifting token is with Xiao Hua? Humph, humph, it must have been a disciple of the Profound Sky sect who handed this thing to the unlucky Fan Tong at the Feather Immortal Assembly. Liu Weigang has already said this. Daoist Jingyu is extremely protective, so he will definitely avenge Fan Tong. Looks like my little junior brother's situation is not good. Since Zhong Zhihao noticed Xiao Hua, that old Vice Alliance leader Luo naturally also saw Xiao Hua. Daoist Jingyu is about to head to the Sky Patrol City. Little junior brother is surrounded by enemies. -9. Chapter 2575. I've already told him to come and be my heavenly demon sect's vice sect leader. I can also send my disciples to help him. Now, I have to find a way to hide my connection with him. Oh, right, what's the name of the disciple who sent the elixir to Xiao Hua? I can't let him live a moment longer. This guy only knows how to flaunt his superiority and fight alone. How could he know how wonderful it is to have the heavenly demon sect as his backing? Look. I don't have to do it myself. Naturally, my subordinates will deliver the Taiching sect's wine. Xiao Hua wants to drink it, but can he drink it? Alas, I don't know how Yu Tong is doing. I don't know if the words I taught her could deceive those sword. However, even if she couldn't deceive them, they wouldn't do anything out of line to her, right? Speaking of which, it's strange. Where did Zhong Yuhe go? She's really dead and nowhere to be seen. It's very strange. Just when Zhong Qingxiao was both intoxicated and worried, she suddenly felt a jolt in her heart. She looked up and saw that not far ahead, a scarlet mist flashed, and a messaging charm appeared outside the light shield. Pa! Zhong Qingxiao snapped her fingers, and a small crack appeared on the light shield. The message talisman rushed in through the crack, and naturally, a few strands of the yellow dust in the sky also seeped in. Oh! Zhong Qingxiao's divine sense entered the message talisman and looked at it. A strange look appeared on her face. She snorted coldly and waved her hand. The message talisman flew out again. The great vice sect leader Yin of the heavenly demon sect is coming. He's really arrogant. He didn't even write anything on the message talisman, only the word Yin. Damn it, it seems that he really thinks he's the first vice sect leader of the heavenly demon sect. Zhong Qingxiao sneered and waved her hand to destroy the spirit wine that had fallen into the yellow dust. However, just as her fingers touched the wine cup, she stopped and a smile appeared on her face. After a while, a faint black shadow appeared in the yellow dust. The shape of the shadow couldn't be seen. It looked like a human figure, but also like a floating mist. When the shadow got closer, the figure was revealed. Ayo, Vice Sect Leader Yin. Zhong Qingxiao hurriedly got up and waved her hand, as if she was lifting up a curtain, parting the brilliance of the bright scenic bell. Please come in, please come in. It had only been 10 months since they last met, but the Vice Sect Master's invisibility technique had improved by leaps and bounds. Fortunately, it's noon right now. If it was dusk or night, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see it. Yin Meng's lips curled into a proud smile. She didn't care about the brilliance of the bright scenic bell at all. Then, she went in without hesitation. It was as if he didn't care that he had entered the range of Zhong Qingxiao's magical weapon. Zhong Qingxiao understood that it was not because Yin Meng was not worried about her, but because Yin Meng was extremely confident in his own cultivation, and was not afraid that Zhong Qingxiao would do anything to him. Yin Meng stood on the silk carpet and glanced around with a smile. Sect leader Zhong really knows how to enjoy life. Tasting the sweet bamboo liquid in this Lian country filled with yellow soil really makes this old man envious. This old man is troubled by the trivial matters of Tiangang sect every day. I really want to learn from Sect Master Zhong and steal half a day of leisure. Zhong Qingxiao wasn't angry because Yin Meng didn't call her Lord Sect Master and only called her Sect Leader Zhong. Instead, she was extremely polite. She cupped her hands and said, "How can this Zhong be qualified? It's only because of some Yin Zi that I can become the sect leader of Heavenly Demon Sect. When it comes to talent and governance, how can I compare to Vice Sect Leader Yin? As for the cultivation of demonic arts, don't even mention it. My Heavenly Demon 13 sects still has to rely on Vice Sect Leader Yin, this kind of person with outstanding talent. Especially Vice Sect Leader Yin, who is the first Vice Sect Leader of Heavenly Demon Sect. All of the sect's affairs, no matter how big or small, rely on Vice Sect Leader Yin's participation. The capable do more work, it doesn't matter." Yin Meng sat down unceremoniously, and Zhong Qingxiao hurriedly waved his hand and said, "This sect leader has just fallen. If Vice Sect Leader Yin doesn't mind, please drink a few cups, how about it?" "Ha ha ha, thank you Sect Leader Zhong. To be able to make Sect Leader Zhong personally pour wine, this Heavenly Demon Sect, this old man is the first." He laughed sinisterly and made a grabbing motion with his hand. 5 wisps of faint black mist flew out from his fingertips, grabbing the spirit wine from the wine cups. He opened his mouth, and the scarlet liquid fell into his mouth. Few tilde after the wine entered his stomach, Yin Meng let out a long breath and praised, "Sure enough, it's Taiching Sect's famous sweet bamboo liquid. It really lives up to its reputation. If Vice Sect Leader Yin likes it, you can drink a few more cups." Zhong Qingxiao reached out and personally raised the wine cup, poured wine for Yin Meng, and said, "This sect leader only has this little hobby. I didn't expect Vice Sect Leader Yin to like it too. Who wouldn't like such a good wine?" Yin Meng rolled his eyes at Zhong Qingxiao and said, "However, if you want to drink such good wine often, there must be a price." Yes, Zhong Qingxiao pretended not to know what Yin Meng said, and raised his thumb and said, "It turns out that Vice Sect Leader Yin is also an expert in this field. This sect leader came here to drink the sweet bamboo liquid because this spirit wine is brewed from the pure earth attribute sweet bamboo fruit. It can only be drunk in a place with extremely rich earth attribute spirit chi of heaven and earth to taste its best taste." Oh! Obviously, Yin Meng didn't know this story, but he also raised his eyebrows and said, "So Sect Leader Zhong also knows about it." This sect leader just found out. Zhong Qingxiao smiled wholeheartedly, and it seemed that he didn't change his attitude because of Yin Meng's attitude. Yin Meng poured a few more cups, and Zhong Qingxiao also accompanied at the same time. After a long while, he asked tentatively, "By the way, Vice Sect Leader Yin came here from afar. What's the matter?" "It's not a big matter. He just wanted to ask about the establishment of the Heavenly Demon Sect." Yin Meng seemed to be asking a junior. "Oh, this matter is a big matter of my Heavenly Demon Sect." Zhong Qingxiao smiled and said, "Although my Heavenly Demon Sect has been established long ago, and even has some influence on the Dawn Rain continent, it's not completely open yet. Under the planning of the various Vice Sect leaders, especially Vice Sect Leader Yin, our sect leader has already made arrangements according to the previous discussion. All the preparations have been completed, and it can be said that everything is ready except for the east wind. Good. When the nascent soul cultivators from the 3 cultivation countries go to the Sky Patrol City, my heavenly demon sect will be established when they don't care. When the battle between the Tao cultivators is over, my heavenly demon sect will also have a firm foothold. What can the dozens of Tao sects do to my heavenly demon sect? Yin Meng said proudly. Zhong Qingxiao's face showed a trace of hesitation, and there was a trace of fear as he said in a low voice, "Actually, Vice Sect Leader Yin, this sect leader feels that the current situation of my heavenly demon sect is already very good. The number of disciples is slowly increasing, and the influence of the 13 demon sects is also gradually expanding. There's no need for us to establish a sect right away. It won't be too late to establish a sect after our strength is consolidated, and when we can completely resist the Tao sect, right? If those nascent soul cultivators send their disciples to annihilate us, this sect leader is afraid that the good situation from before will be gone forever." What do you know? Yin Meng sneered. This is the best time for my heavenly demon sect to establish a sect. The Tao sect has placed their focus on the sword cultivators, and they don't have the strength to take care of my demon sect. The sword Tao battle? You don't have to worry. As the saying goes, to kill 1,000 enemies, you lose 800 of your own men. When those Tao sect cultivators extricate themselves from the sword Tao battle, their strength will be almost depleted. How will they have the energy to attack my demon sect? Once my demon sect stands out in the Dawn Rain mainland, the number of disciples joining my demon sect will be 100 or 1,000 times more than before. The 13 demon sects will soon become an existence comparable to the 13 cultivation sect. When that time comes, even if the Tao sects have the strength to annihilate us, will they still dare to do so? Will they still dare to start a Daoist demon war? Yes, this sect leader is not very proficient in these things. Zhong Qingxiao smiled awkwardly and said, even thinking about it gives me a headache. The demons of the demon realm are not good at these things. Yes, this old man knows this. That's why I really lowered myself to help you. Yin Meng nodded and pointed to the west, saying mysteriously, this old man received some fragmentary information. Over there, the people who are coming, I'm afraid they'll be coming soon. We have to establish the 13 demon sects before they come and let them see that we have a great situation here. Ah, they're coming so soon. Zhong Qingxiao was extremely delighted but also a little panicked. Sect leader Zhong, don't be afraid. Yin Meng seemed to have seen through Zhong Qingxiao's thoughts and said with a smile, you've established the 13 demon sects. With such a great contribution, no matter who comes, won't they want you to be the sect leader? Besides, even if it's me, I'm now the deputy sect leader of the heavenly demon sect. I'll definitely put in a good word for sect leader Zhong. Thank you, deputy sect leader Yin. Zhong Qingxiao even bowed and thanked him. Everything depends on deputy sect leader Yin. If the people from that side come, you must properly introduce them to this sect leader. That's natural. Yin Meng stood up and said, this is also an important matter for this old man to come here today. You just have to do well in establishing the sect. No matter how badly you do other things, nothing will happen. Yes, this sect leader understands. Zhong Qingxiao was still respectful. Which sword cultivator's little lady? Yin Meng looked around and said with a smile, why don't you call her out for this old man to see? This sect leader is already a little tired of looking at her. She wanted to go sightseeing, so this sect leader sent a few disciples to follow her. I'm afraid she's already in Meng Kingdom. Zhong Qingxiao said with a smile. Oh, so sect leader Zhong is already tired of her. Yin Meng's eyes showed a trace of a smile, and he looked Zhong Qingxiao up and down and said, this old man thinks that the little lady is not bad. This sect leader knows. Zhong Qingxiao smiled apologetically, wait for this sect leader's arrangements in the future. Ha, thank you sect leader Zhong. Yin Meng laughed loudly, stood up, and cupped his hands, saying, this old man still has a lot of things to do in Tiangang sect, so I won't accompany sect leader Zhong. Goodbye. -9. Chapter 2576. I'll send Vice Sect Leader Yin off. Zhong Qingxiao respectfully opened the bright scenic bell's light screen and said with a smile. No need. Yin Meng waved his hand and said, with such yellow dust, I still have to use my invisibility technique. I'm afraid you won't be able to catch up. Ayo, that's right. Then I'll send Vice Sect Leader off with my eyes. Zhong Qingxiao suddenly understood and slapped his own forehead with a smile. Zhong Qingxiao waited for Yin Meng to turn into a wisp of smoke and fly away in a seemingly slow but swift manner. She then closed the light screen of the bright scenic bell. The corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile as a trace of viciousness surfaced in her eyes. With a wave of her hand, a bright red flame flashed. Not only were the jade cups and wine bottles used by Yin Meng turned into dust, even the jade table and silk blanket were turned into dust. Zhong Qingxiao took out another silk blanket and wine bottle and sat down again. Yin Meng, that old bastard, bullied me too much. Zhong Qingxiao swore inwardly, but then he laughed again. It was a very carefree laugh. Isn't this what I want? In this world, people without strength can only be looked down upon by others. They can only be humiliated by others and feel unreconciled. But am I that kind of person? Didn't you see that my junior brother could casually kill a middle-stage golden core cultivator? He even used the face of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator to fool around in the Imperial Thundersec. Since he dared to kill Marshal Kuan, he naturally dared to kill Qian Mo naturally. Damn it, that Tu Hong wouldn't be here to kill, right? Xiao Hua killed so many famous cultivators, but he still calmly stayed among the cultivators and no one suspected him. Wasn't he just relying on his cultivation to cover up? I can easily kill Yin Meng, but what about the people behind him? That bullshit Vice Alliance leader Luo, and those devil sect people who are coming, and there seems to be a lot more. How can I kill them all at once? Forget it, a real man knows when to yield and when not. I still let Yin Meng look down on me. So what? Zhong Qingxiao reached out and picked up a cup of sweet bamboo liquor and laughed. Aren't you all still being played by me in the palm of my hand? Other than me and senior sister, who else knows that Xiao Hua is my junior brother? Other than Zhong Zhihao, even Vice Alliance leader Luo himself, doesn't know that it's just my clone. Ha 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 ha. What a joke. Zhong Qingxiao laughed heartily for a moment, and then his expression calmed down again. Even though it was extremely rare for him to reveal his inner thoughts like this, if Yin Meng hadn't mentioned Zhong Yutong just now, how could he have had such an opportunity? The yellow dust outside the light barrier was still the same. Even when night fell, not only did it show no signs of stopping, it even began to wreak havoc, dyeing the horizon yellow. Originally, one could still see the desolation of blood, but now, it had turned into an earthy yellow color, giving off a very filthy feeling. Forget it. Zhong Qingxiao waved her hand and stood up. She sighed. In the bleak dusk, the sunset always makes people nostalgic. Unfortunately, it's Yutong's favorite. When she was here, even the heavens took care of her. Today, I came here to watch the sunset and wanted to feel it. Who knew that not only would Yin Meng disturb me, even the heavens wouldn't give me face. Just as Zhong Qingxiao stood up, a scarlet communication talisman landed in front of him. Zhong Qingxiao impatiently reached out and took the communication talisman. After looking at it for a moment, his expression turned serious. He raised his head and pondered for a moment. Then, with a tap of his hand, the communication talisman flew away. Then, Zhong Qingxiao stood there straight and looked to the west with his hands clasped behind his back. In that earthy yellow area, half a hazy setting sun slowly set. Disciple greets sect master. A similarly faint black fog drifted over from the yellow dust. When it landed on the ground, the black fog didn't hesitate to kneel on the ground, revealing a humble figure. In his hand was a pitch-black magic slip, and he held it above his head with both hands. This humble one has a jade slip for Lord. This humble one didn't dare to delay and specially sent it over. Oh! Zhong Qingxiao was slightly taken aback. With a wave of his hand, the magic slip fell into his hand. However, he didn't care about it. He glanced at it briefly and threw it on the jade table beside him. Then, he looked at the disciple kneeling on the ground and snorted coldly. He asked, "Mph, how is the situation with the establishment of my demonic 13 sects? Why aren't you properly taking care of things in the country of Shi? Why did you come to the country of Lian for an insignificant jade slip?" "Yes, sect master understands." That disciple lowered his head and didn't dare to raise it. He carefully said, "The 3 aristocratic families in the country of Shi, Huaixin's Fan family and Fan Qiu's Zhao family have long been under our control. Now, we only need to change their recruitment. As for Gerant's Zhao family, we have already arranged disciples nearby. As long as sect master gives the order, this humble one's disciples can quickly control Gerant's Zhao family. These 3 families are in the shape of the character. They can be the foundation of our demonic 13 sects in the country of Shi." "Good. You all have contributed greatly to the establishment of the demonic 13 sect." Zhong Qingxiao nodded. "What about the country of Meng?" This. According to sect master's arrangement, the foundation of the 3 aristocratic families, Qian City's Ming family, Mo City's Qi family, and Yi City's Qian family, will be the foundation of our demonic 13 sects in the country of Meng. However, other than the Yi City's Qian family, which currently has a 90% chance, the other 2 families only have a 50% chance. After all, there are other cultivation sects nearby these 2 families. This humble one is afraid that our demonic 13 sects will make a move. They may not just stand by and watch. You don't have to worry about this. Zhong Qingxiao waved his hand. If they know what's good for them, then let's forget about it. If they dare to make a move, then we'll just eliminate them all. Yes, this humble one understands. That disciple said again. The establishment of sects in the country of Lian is much faster than the other 2 countries. The Qianpeng Ridge's Huang family, Demonic Cave's Chang family, and Fanyi Mountain's Wang family are all under sect master's control. They can change their sects at any time. This humble one really admires them. Ha ha ha, Yi Yin, when did you learn to flatter this sect master? Zhong Qingxiao laughed out loud. These 3 families in the country of Lian were originally the secret hands of our demonic 13 sects. They were cultivated decades ago. If this sect master couldn't control them now, how could he dare to establish the demonic 13 sects? This humble one admires sect master for this. The disciple named Yi Yin said respectfully. The demonic 13 sects were established by sect master single-handedly. Moreover, it started decades ago. It's only now that you've revealed your ferocious side. If it were this humble one, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to hold back 20 years ago. Haha, do you think I didn't want to establish a sect earlier? Zhong Qingxiao laughed and scolded. In the past, my strength wasn't enough. Now that I have the 13 deputy sect masters, I have the courage to speak. If it weren't for you, I would still be holding back. I wouldn't dare. We all relied on sect master's talent. Yi Yin said hurriedly. If it weren't for sect master, how could we have today's status and achievements? How could we have a firm foothold in front of the Dao sect cultivators? Moreover, we have to rely on sect master to stand up to them in the future. We really can't do anything. Haha. Zhong Qingxiao enjoyed it in her heart, and the corners of her mouth curled into a slight smile. Ever since this humble one entered the demonic 13 sects, I've treated the demonic 13 sects as my home. It's a place where this humble one can shelter from the wind and rain in the future. Yi Yin still didn't dare to look up as he said humbly, moreover, sect master's great talent and bold vision has left this humble one in awe. To be honest, this humble one has considered the future development of the demonic 13 sects, but this humble one really didn't expect that sect master would establish a sect in the 3 cultivation countries at once. This way, our demonic 13 sects will become a colossus. This humble one's thoughts are really insignificant compared to sect masters. Haha, I'm afraid you don't understand, right? Zhong Qingxiao said with a smile. Sect master is really godly. Yi Yin raised his head at this moment. His fair and clear face revealed a shrewd look, and his eyes flashed with admiration. No one would associate him with a demonic cultivator. This humble one has never dared to ask, afraid that it would disturb sect master's train of thought. Now that everything is ready, please enlighten me, sect master. Millimeter, We were talking about forbearance just now. Yi Yin, you're really forbearing. Speak, you're the second deputy sect master of the demonic 13 sects. This sect has nothing to hide from you, Zhong Qingxiao said with a nod. Actually, there's nothing too suspicious. This humble one just feels that although our demonic 13 sects have a lot of people, the cultivation of our disciples is still shallow and can't be compared to those cultivation sects. Even if we establish a sect, it's best to find a slightly remote place that's easy to defend and hard to attack. We don't even want to be discovered by them. Yi Yin smiled apologetically. Moreover, Sect Master has established 3 bases in each of the 3 cultivation countries at once. Isn't this just dividing the power of our demonic 13 sects? Each base will only have 30% of our power. Moreover, the development of the 3 demonic 13 sects will definitely be different. Which demonic 13 sect is the real demonic 13 sect? Ha ha ha! Zhong Qingxiao laughed. He knew in his heart that Yi Yin might not be ignorant. However, he still asked this question. On one hand, it was to express his respect for him, which showed that he was really humble. On the other hand, it was also to express his unswerving loyalty to the demonic 13 sect and his concern for its development. In the face of Zhong Qingxiao's laughter, Yi Yin's expression was normal, as if he was really asking for advice. Yi Yin, didn't you say so yourself? The cultivation of our demonic 13 sects disciples is generally shallow and the newly recruited disciples are all useless. It's not suitable for us to go against the cultivation sects directly. In that case, 100,000 people and 30,000 people are all the same in the eyes of the cultivation sects. Since that's the case, why don't we divide the 100,000 people into 3 groups? We can directly divert the attention of the Dao sect's cultivators. Moreover, in this way, our demonic 13 sect, which originally had 1 base, will now have 3 bases. Won't our reputation be even greater? Moreover, a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. Our demonic 13 sect has 3 bases all of a sudden. How would they know which one is the real demonic 13 sect? Although the 3 cultivation countries are all Dao sects, they are not one country or sect. If they want to deal with our demonic 13 sect, they will definitely have to join forces. There will also be dirty tricks involved. Isn't this a good thing for our demonic 13 sect? -9. Chapter 2577. Yi Yin nodded hurriedly. Yes, yes. They thought that Lord Sect Master set up a maze, but who would know that these 3 places are the true foundations of our heavenly demon sect? As for the development between the 3 foundations that you mentioned, there's even less to worry about. Zhong Qingxiao continued, fiendish cultivators like us emphasize on bloodshed. Whoever develops better, our sect will invest more in that person. The 13 sects of heavenly demon sect. Perhaps in the end, there's only one sect that can stand tall in the Dawn Rain continent. Or perhaps it can develop into 30 sect. All these will depend on you, Yi Yin. Yes, I understand. I'll definitely sacrifice my life for the development of our heavenly demon sect. Yi Yin bowed in admiration. Yi Yin, remember, heavenly demon sect is our heavenly demon sect. Your development is the development of our heavenly demon sect, and your improvement is the improvement of our heavenly demon sect. Your heavenly Brahmin sect is also a part of my heavenly demon sect. Supporting the heavenly Brahmin sect is the greatest support for my sect. If your Tianfan sect develops well in the future, you can even establish your own sect and be the master of your own sect. Zhong Qingxiao said earnestly. Yi Yin's eyes flashed with a trace of fanaticism when he heard that, but he concealed it immediately and knelt on the ground. I only need to follow Lord Sect Master's footsteps. I don't dare to think too much. Ha ha ha! Up to you. Whatever you think, our sect will support it. Zhong Qingxiao nodded and took out a storage bag. She handed it to Yi Yin and said, "This is the reward from Tiangang sect. You can deal with it as you see fit." Thank you, Lord Sect Master. Yi Yin took the storage bag, scanned it with his divine telekinesis, and immediately bowed in joy. After Yi Yin left, Zhong Qingxiao couldn't wait to reach out and pick up the fiendish bamboo slip again. She pointed her finger, and a blood-colored mist shot into the fiendish bamboo slip. The blood-colored brilliance on the fiendish bamboo slip flickered like a ball of blood. It was only after a while that the fiendish bamboo slip was slightly white. Ah! What's going on? Zhong Qingxiao immersed his divine sense into the magic bamboo slip that had its restriction lifted. He couldn't help but be shocked. That Prajna Parameter Heart Sutra was given to junior sister by Xiao Hua. I have also carefully looked at it. It is a Buddhist sect's cultivation method. There is nothing strange about it. That's why I was relieved to have someone send it over. How could this Jiang Liuer lose consciousness after cultivating? Motherfucker, I'm in a terrible fix. Zhong Qingxiao slapped his forehead and was about to get up in annoyance. However, after he put away the jade table, he smiled bitterly. When it comes to junior sister, my heart is in a mess. I'm a devil cultivator, not a Buddhist. What's the use of me going there? The one who tied the bell should untie it. If they wanted to find Jiang Liuer's illness, Xiao Hua had to go, but this guy was in the sword tomb. If I don't go, who can find him? Forget it, I'll tell junior martial sister first. Anyway, it's useless for me to go. Zhong Qingxiao was also helpless. He wrote something in the magic bamboo slip and then pointed his hand. The blood-red mist appeared again. When it's time to ask Xiao Hua for help, we'll go together. When the mist on the message talisman disappeared, Zhong Qingxiao put away the bright scenic bell. His body was suffused with a faint brilliance, blocking the yellow soil outside his body. His figure flashed slightly and disappeared. That figure was like an antelope hanging its horn without a trace. It was many times more brilliant than Yin Meng. Zhong Qingxiao was thinking about going to the sword tomb to find Xiao Hua. However, even if he really went to the sword tomb, it might not be easy to find Xiao Hua at this time, because Xiao Hua had already gone deep into the sword tomb following the instructions of the magic bamboo slip. At the periphery of the sword tomb, there was an endless stretch of purple jasmine flowers. Even for a male cultivator like Xiao Hua, when he looked at it, his eyes were filled with gorgeous purple. He couldn't help but be intoxicated. Not to mention women like formless sword Guu, they also saw the purple that spread between heaven and earth as the most beautiful scene in the sword tomb. However, the sword tomb, which was known as one of the 10 most dangerous places in the country of Shi, had shed its gorgeous outer layer and revealed its sinister side in front of Xiao Hua. As Xiao Hua went deeper, the purple jasmine flowers gradually became sparse. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of blood-red vegetation. This vegetation had already existed when the purple jasmine flowers were still flourishing. However, it was stuck to the ground and was covered by the purple. Now that the pure purple had become thinner, this blood-red color was revealed. Moreover, the weather inside the sword tomb was different from the outside. Gradually, the dark clouds above Xiao Hua's head became thicker and the wind became more bitingly cold. If the winter's cold wind was said to be as cold as a knife to the people of the secular world, then the cold wind inside the sword tomb was really like a knife. Not to mention the bone-piercing cold, the wind blades that often rolled up in the wind also slightly stirred up the light protecting Xiao Hua's body. Sometimes, the light even faintly flickered, forcing Xiao Hua to constantly urge his magic power. The strangest thing was, from time to time, a few bean-sized raindrops would also drip down. Under this kind of cold weather, these raindrops didn't condense. Instead, each raindrop contained an extremely strong force and was even somewhat sharp. Every time it hit Xiao Hua's body, it was like a small flying sword attacking him. Damn it, that Yu Tong is really determined to kill me. The more Xiao Hua flew in, the more alarmed he became. This strange phenomenon in the sword tomb must be caused by the remnant sword intent. Those hundreds of thousands, millions of battle spirits would also add fuel to the fire. Under this kind of extreme situation, this young master was only an early foundation establishment cultivator at that time. How could he resist? I'm afraid that before I reached this place, I would have already been buried under the purple jasmine flowers. But, Yu Tong, he was only a 10th layer chi refining brat at that time. Why did he come here? Or, What is the Huanhua sect doing here? Xiao Hua muttered again. Didn't Zhong Haoren say it? These 2 years, we met many cultivation families, but we didn't see many Huanhua sect disciples. Then why did Yun Gui Chong and the others suddenly come here? Didn't they participate in the war? Huanhua sect, our Huanhua sect. This young master sincerely wanted to enter the Huanhua sect that day, but not only was this Yu Tong's senior meddling, he was also threatened in the main hall. Since this young master came here today, I want to see what kind of tricks you were playing that day. Xiao Hua originally resented Yu Tong's insidiousness, but when he thought about how dangerous this place was, and how Yu Tong was only 100% qi refining cultivator at that time, and now he was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. He might not even be able to reach the middle stage of foundation establishment. Back then, he needed someone to protect him when he went to this sword tomb, so he definitely wouldn't go deep into this place. Thus, his thoughts of looking for Yu Tong faded. A huge sound of water splashing could be heard in the air. The raindrops that were just drizzling a moment ago suddenly became bigger, sprinkling down like a torrential downpour. The protective brilliance around Xiao Hua's body flickered. It's a bit strange. Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his magic power to maintain the protective brilliance. While he raised his head to look at the already pitch-black night sky, he couldn't see the slightest bit of starlight. He thought very strangely, this sword tomb's rainstorm, doesn't it have thunder? It seems that ever since this young master entered the sword tomb, I haven't heard the sound of thunder. Thinking this, Xiao Hua pricked up his ears. Sure enough, his ears were filled with the sound of raindrops falling. There wasn't the slightest bit of sonorous thunder. The world is so big that nothing is too strange. Xiao Hua laughed inwardly. Today, my horizons have been broadened again. After flying for a while, the entire sword tomb was pitch black. The rainwater that was like the Milky Way hanging upside down was like the flying sword of a swordsman, attacking Xiao Hua from top to bottom all the time. Xiao Hua gradually felt impatient. As a result, Xiao Hua took out the jade slip again. His divine sense was just about to enter it to check when suddenly, Xiao Hua felt that within a few dozen feet to his left, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth suddenly transformed, and a burst of intense sword qi was born from all around. Who? Xiao Hua coldly shouted, his Buddhist sense sweeping over, but he saw that the surroundings were empty, there wasn't any swordsman's figure. Moreover, at this time, the space near Xiao Hua's left had a faint feeling of sharpness and gravity. His Buddhist sense was unconsciously obstructed, and was firmly suppressed by that gravity, unable to go very far. Seeing that his Buddhist sense was suppressed, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be careless. His figure suddenly stopped in midair, his eyes vigilantly sweeping all around. Wong tilde, a burst of sword cries rose from the distance, like a swarm of bees, becoming increasingly louder. Not good. It's a remnant sword array. Xiao Hua felt a swift and fierce sword intent approaching, and a layer of goosebumps unconsciously appeared on his arms. A kind of vigilance also appeared in his heart, and he immediately understood. As a result, his figure hastily flashed to the side. Xiao Hua's ethereal steps was already very mysterious, and at this time, with the addition of the wind evasion, his entire body was like a wisp of smoke, floating without a trace of smoke. In the blink of an eye, he had moved more than 1 zhong. The instant he dodged, 5 sword lights simultaneously rushed out from a pentagonal area around Xiao Hua. Those sword lights were of different colors, and they flew straight into the air, stabbing towards the place where Xiao Hua was previously standing. Moreover, those sword lights trembled slightly, and along with this strange trembling fluctuation, those sword lights rapidly expanded. By the time they stabbed in front of Xiao Hua, it had already become a 5-colored sword screen, flatly covering an area of more than 10 zhong. Although Xiao Hua had dodged more than 1 zhong, that place was still where the sword lights were attacking. What kind of sword array is this? Xiao Hua's heart trembled, and without hesitation, he waved his hand and took out the wishful steel staff. He waved it casually, protecting his body without a drop of water leaking out. Kung kung kung. Like raindrops hitting a boulder, the sound was unceasing. The sword lights were all blocked by the wishful steel staff. Every time the sword light fell on the wishful steel staff, the weight in Xiao Hua's hand increased by a little. Not long after, the weight of the wishful steel staff was quite considerable. Isn't the wishful steel staff not known to be in the 5 elements? Xiao Hua was a little depressed. How come the influence of the sword array is reduced in this sword array? It seems that the demonic tool is not in the 5 element. When the wishful steel staff was added to the demonic tool during the refining process, although the weight increased, it was contaminated with the 5 elements. The gains did not make up for the losses. -9. Chapter 2578. However, just as Xiao Hua was thinking about how to break this sword formation, the 5-colored sword curtain was suddenly cut off. The entire night sky was only left with the sound of dripping rain. The buzzing sound of the sword had completely disappeared, as if it had never appeared at all. Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. He held the wishful staff in his hand and stood hesitantly in the air. The sword formation had appeared and disappeared suddenly. Moreover, the power of the sword formation was very fierce. It seemed to be more mysterious than the 7-star sword formation that he could set up. If this sword formation had not suddenly disappeared, he was afraid that he would have to spend more effort to break it. Since he had just entered the center of the sword tomb and encountered such a powerful sword formation, then, there were probably more broken sword formations inside. The sword formations must be even more powerful. Was it necessary for him to continue moving forward? At this moment, the distant sword tomb stretched out. Suddenly, a strong silver-white brilliance flashed. It was very obvious in this pitch-black darkness. This silver brilliance was like a flying dragon, but also like a fierce tiger. It circled in the distance and rushed into the sky. It rapidly fell down, and when the distance disappeared into the night, a roaring sound like a dragon and a leaping tiger passed into Xiao Hua's ears. This hissing sound was like a stone that had been thrown into the lake. With a splash, the stone disappeared, but the ripples on the surface of the lake continued to ripple. They slowly rippled across the entire surface of the lake, and didn't calm down for a long time. The hissing sound quickly disappeared. However, following that, wong 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 tilde 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 sorrowful sword cries were attracted by the hissing sound. One after another, they appeared in the distance and rushed towards the surroundings of the sword tomb as if they were spreading. The area where Xiao Hua was at was naturally affected as well. Low and high sword cries rose and fell one after another. Even the area where the sword formation was located at the 5 stars also let out a dull hiss at the same time. Rumble. Within the Buddhist flames, Punisher Dream and Mountain Splitter were actually attracted by the sword hum as well. Within the Buddhist flames, they were itching to give it a try. Even the 7 sword orbs that hadn't been nurtured before seemed to be jumping about. Xiao Hua's primordial spirit, which was in the dream executioner's primordial spirit, suddenly jumped. Sorrow, longing, competitiveness, and unyielding emotions filled his primordial spirit. He even had the impulse to charge into the sword cry. Xiao Hua's heart stirred. His flying sword had been nurtured for a long time, but it hadn't produced sword intent for a long time. Now that his primordial spirit had such a perception, wasn't it the best opportunity? Almost without thinking, Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and Dream Executioner and Mountain Splitter flew out. Wong tilde tilde wong tilde tilde 2 lively sword cries rushed into the night sky, echoing with the other sword cries. At the same time, a feeling of carefreeness, freedom, and responsibility filled Xiao Hua's heart. Ha 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 tilde Xiao Hua immediately tossed that trace of hesitation to the back of his mind. The Tao of the flying sword is precisely about moving forward courageously, becoming stronger when faced with danger. If one is overcautious and hesitant, how can one become a supreme flying sword? This young master has known about this path for a long time. However, whenever I encounter danger, I feel a bit fearful. I have to think about how to avoid it. How can I become a flying sword? Forget it, forget it, forget it tilde no matter how powerful this sword tomb is, this young master still has to take a look. Otherwise, how can I face Senior Li Shoubai? Wong tilde Xiao Hua's heroic spirit soared to the sky. The 2 flying swords were also happy. As the flying swords vibrated, The sword cry was also loud and clear. Unexpectedly, it provoked the nearby countless flying swords to cry out, "Ah!" Xiao Hua was rather stunned. He originally thought that since he had just touched the central edge of the sword tomb, there wouldn't be many broken flying swords. However, he didn't expect that. He had already been trapped in countless flying sword. When he thought of the countless flying swords inside the sword tomb, Xiao Hua's astonishment completely disappeared. He was even somewhat secretly delighted. It must be known that these flying swords were the remnants of tens of thousands of years old. Xiao Hua absolutely wouldn't believe that they hadn't turned into sword. However, just as Xiao Hua's greed was born, this greed was dispelled by the indescribable reverence from the flying swords. The two flying swords hovered in the air above the sword catacomb as if they had returned to a different home. The countless sword wills nearby were the companions and seniors of the flying swords. These flying swords were broken here and laid to rest here. This was the place where they had fought bravely in the past. Just like the countless brave swordsmen and cultivators, no matter what they had fought for, they had fulfilled their duties and done what they should have done. Their corpses were laid to rest here. This place should be respected by all living beings, not destroyed and harass. Great. Understanding this, Xiao Hua's mind was immediately filled with compassion. He had long since abandoned the idea of taking the broken swords out of the ground. His slightly opened left hand also quietly closed. Xiao Hua even slightly bowed, as if he was saluting the countless flying swords, revering their solemn and stirring moments before they were broken. The sword tomb has always existed. These flying swords have never been taken away by sword cultivators. Perhaps this is the meaning. This is the mausoleum of the broken swords. The best thing to do is to not disturb them and let them rest peacefully. Xiao Hua suddenly understood the meaning of the sword tomb. Inside the flying swords, his entire primordial spirit was surrounded by a warm feeling. It was as if only at this moment did the primordial spirit he planted inside the flying swords was recognized by the flying sword. A layer of hazy yet clear veil blocked in front of his primordial spirit. It was as if as long as he could see what was behind the veil, the sword intent that Xiao Hua longed for would be born. Unfortunately, it was as if he was missing an opportunity. This veil still existed. Let's go. Xiao Hua smiled and looked into the distance. The sound of the swords was still gradually fading. Perhaps the answer is there. With two whooshes, the Dream Executor and Mountain Splitter landed at Xiao Hua's feet. Xiao Hua didn't use any other flying techniques. He urged the flying swords to fly. In the dark night, the two red and green flying swords weren't very conspicuous. However, they flew towards the center of the sword tomb with a clear heart that pursued the path of the sword. However, in the time it took for Xiao Hua to smoke half a cigarette, he heard a light tearing sound, as if silk had been torn apart. The raindrops that had been splashing around Xiao Hua suddenly decreased in size, and when Xiao Hua's body became sluggish, the raindrops actually disappeared without a trace. This is bad. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. I just encountered a broken sword array. Now, I'm afraid it's a Dao sect array. Sure enough, just as Xiao Hua's figure flashed and retreated backwards, a catcha-catcha sound rang out from several li to the left of Xiao Hua. In mid-air, an earth-shattering restrictive force was suddenly born. It was as if a palm that was several li in size had suddenly curled up. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. With a wave of his hand, the seal of turning the sea flew out. An earth-yellow brilliance enveloped Xiao Hua. Only then was the restrictive force barely lifted. This restrictive force seems to be comparable to a talisman from a nascent soul's hand. Xiao Hua pondered in midair. Moreover, the restrictive force of a nascent soul's hand condenses from all directions towards the center. This array is completely born in the entire space. It's as if there's a tiny nascent soul's hand in every inch of space. I don't know how many years this array has been here. Even now, it's still so powerful. An ordinary brightsword swordsman definitely wouldn't be able to easily escape from this array. Such a powerful array. If only I had an array diagram. Xiao Hua thought this array was the same as the sword array from before. He thought he could escape after waiting a little longer. However, as the array's strength increased, The brilliance of the seal of turning the sea also gradually dimmed. The array didn't seem to have any signs of stopping. Damn it, Xiao Hua cursed. He urged his magic and pointed at the seal of turning the sea. Rise. The seal of turning the sea let out a huge rumbling sound. It seemed to be rapidly expanding. However, as Xiao Hua poured his magic power in, the surroundings of the seal of turning the sea didn't swirl up a hurricane. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth that Xiao Hua expected also didn't suck in. Even the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has actually been confined. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Helpless, he could only urge his magic power again. The true essence in his body surged, but the coiling dragon above the seal of turning the sea gradually came alive again. The coiling dragon circled around the seal, opened its mouth, and held the seal in its mouth. Then, like a flying dragon in the sky, the coiling dragon soared high into the sky. The seal also emitted an extremely powerful restrictive force and rushed towards the array. Rumble! An earth-shaking rumble rang out. The seal of ocean overturning seal collided with the sealing power of the formation, causing the space several kilometers in front of Xiao Hua to tremble. Xiao Hua's figure also swayed twice amidst the tremors. The enormous force pressed him down by more than 10 feet. The coiling dragon of the seal of turning the sea let out a mournful cry. As Xiao Hua's magic power was slightly exhausted, the dragon's body flashed and was about to land on the seal of turning the sea. Rise! Although Xiao Hua was shocked that the array covered such a large area, he was even more delighted by the might of his seal of turning the sea. He roared again and urged his magic power. The coiling dragon once again charged towards the array, full of vigor. Buzz! A loud sound was heard. The brilliance of the seal of turning the sea slightly paused in midair. It was like a jade pillar holding up the sky that was collapsing. This young master wants to see, even without the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, whether or not the true essence in this young master's meridians can break through this so-called array. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. The trace of primordial spirit in his meridians urged the dragonization art. Boundless true essence surged, and his magic power instantly rushed into the seal of turning the sea. The seal of ocean overturning seal suddenly expanded, and threads of jade began to condense in the surroundings. As the seal of ocean overturning seal flashed, the coiling dragon also gradually grew longer. Then, the entire seal of ocean overturning seal seemed to be supported by a giant. It was both slow and indestructible as it charged into the array. Bang! The clear sound of water rang out. The array was broken by the seal of turning the sea. All of the restrictive force suddenly disappeared, and the rainwater once again poured down from above. Damn it! This is too anticlimactic. Xiao Hua was obviously caught unprepared. The seal of turning the sea whistled and soared into the sky. The earthen yellow brilliance illuminated an area of several tens of zhong. Within this abandoned array, the ground was also covered in scarlet-red vegetation. Now that it was washed by the rain, the brilliance was transparent. However, that scarlet-red color was demonic. -9. Chapter 2579. Xiao Hua put away the seal of overturning the sea and flew for more than 10 li. Within the range of the array, there were no more changes. I'm afraid I can't rashly move forward anymore. Although Xiao Hua's heroic spirit soared to the sky, in the face of the sword cultivators and the array set up by the Taoist sect for tens of thousands of years, he was also anxious in his heart. Let's wait until dawn tomorrow. The rain will stop, then we'll move forward. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua looked around and scanned the area with his divine sense. He was about to descend and rest in a low-lying area. However, just as he was about to descend, his left arm suddenly shook. The light protecting his body was hit by a sharp force and instantly collapsed. Even his Daoist robe was torn apart. This is... Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly checked, but he didn't see anything special in the darkness. When Xiao Hua released his Buddhist sense, he felt a 1-foot-long, scimitar-like existence emitting a strange fluctuation. Space crack. Xiao Hua suddenly realized that he had already seen this kind of extremely powerful thing in the netherworld. He didn't expect to encounter it again. Just as he arrived at the center of the sword tomb, Xiao Hua hurriedly opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. Sure enough, a gray brilliance stopped at his left arm. It was thin, like a strand of hair. This sword tomb is too dangerous. Xiao Hua couldn't help but groan again. He looked again and again with his Dharma eye before his figure landed. He clapped his hand and took out the rabbit talismans. He separately placed them on the snowfield. When Xiao Hua grabbed with his hand and was about to activate the rabbit array, the jade slip in his arms suddenly vibrated and seemed to start to heat up. Huh? Xiao Hua was surprised. He stretched out his hand and took out the jade slip. He used a bit of magic power to activate it. The jade slip actually flew out a few feet and flew towards the north of the array 1,000 feet away. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly grabbed with his hand and took out the talismans that were placed on the snowfield. His figure shot forward and followed the jade slip. He saw the jade slip fly to a place a few feet higher than the snowfield. There was also a quan-shaped stone block there. However, these rocks were already damaged, and they were covered with scarlet plant. When Xiao Hua saw this, he did not hesitate to grab the rock. A layer of silver light appeared on the rock. This silver light was like mercury leaking to the ground, quickly falling from the top of the rock. A palm-sized square cauldron was revealed. However, the cauldron that was revealed this time was not in perfect condition. There were many flaws on its surface. Xiao Hua looked at it for a moment, then pointed with his finger. The jade slip once again fell into the small cauldron. With a loud bang, the jade slip transformed into a silver splash within the small cauldron. The splash seemed to have been sprayed into the air, then it transformed into a meteor that flew towards the extreme north. This meteor was extremely fast, seemingly even faster than an ordinary message talisman. While Xiao Hua was stunned, the meteor had already crossed over 1,000 feet. Just as Xiao Hua was about to urge his imperial thunder travel to chase after the shooting star, he stopped the rumbling of thunder. This jade slip is most likely a messaging talisman. Of course, this young master can catch up, but can an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator catch up? In the end, what kind of medicinal pill is Yu Tong selling in his gourd? Could it be he has no intention of harming this young master? Just a mere message talisman? But why wasn't it a message talisman just now, but two formations instead? Xiao Hua was somewhat unable to understand, but he was not anxious. Since the message talisman had already been sent out, it would be best if someone came. Even if no one came, he would continue to move forward. However, Xiao Hua thought for a moment, and his figure slowly changed. It was the image of the so-called Feng Ying from that day. It had already been more than 10 years. Fortunately, Xiao Hua's muddle-headed memories could actually still change. Moreover, Xiao Hua's own cultivation had also been suppressed to the early stage of foundation establishment. The Daoist robe on Xiao Hua's body naturally changed into an ordinary one. Then, he took out an ordinary disc-shaped magic tool. The misty green brilliance merely blocked Xiao Hua's body. This was not out of Xiao Hua's expectations. After several hours, he saw that the east was already shining, and no one was coming to look for him. Seeing that the pouring rain did not have the slightest sign of stopping, Xiao Hua, who was quietly cultivating, opened his eyes. He pointed his finger, and the bronze plate fell into his hand. Xiao Hua was about to transform again. At this moment, the quan-shaped stone in front of him suddenly emitted a faint silver light. Oh! Xiao Hua hastily stood still. He flew slightly away from the stone and coldly looked at it. The silver light once again covered the entire stone. However, this time, the stone had transformed into an oval shape, and a broken mirror was revealed from the oval. What a brilliant message talisman technique! Seeing this, Xiao Hua immediately thought, if this technique was used in a battle between Dao cultivators, why would the disciple on duty personally send the message? Even a lot of battle reports would be lost because of this. Emotions gradually appeared on the broken mirror. An old man whose face could not be seen clearly revealed his astonished face. When he saw Xiao Hua, he immediately scolded, How many times did this old man say it? Wu Jiaozi Gui was no longer in use before the new year. Why are you still running there? Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He hastily bowed and said, "All right, teacher brother knows that this disciple did not receive the notice. This disciple only followed the jade slip that junior brother you gave me and headed to this place." The old man coldly snorted. "Whether or not you received the notice has nothing to do with this old man. You go and find your junior brother Yu to settle the score." The root of Wu Jiaozi Gui is now covered with broken sword formations and spell formations. There are also many spatial cracks. Do you want this old man to send someone to pick you up? If you want to die, don't drag this old man down. Oh, it's now covered. Xiao Hua understood. He was shocked. Could it be that the broken sword formations and spell formations can also change? Senior brother, Xiao Hua hastily shouted, "This disciple came here with great difficulty. How do you want this disciple to return?" Just now, this disciple was lucky to escape from the sword formation. If not for these raindrops, this disciple would have already died in the sword formation. "Where's your junior brother Yu? Which one is he? Why didn't he bring you here?" the old man coldly asked. He did not answer Xiao Hua's question. "Junior brother Yu. Naturally it's junior brother Yu Tong." Xiao Hua blinked his eyes and said probingly, "He has some matters to attend to and let this disciple go first. I'm afraid that he will come later." This disciple. Could it be that this disciple came too late? At this moment, the silver mirror faintly flickered. The brilliance was somewhat dim. "Oh, Yu Dong." When the old man heard this, he seemed to be deep in thought. Soon after, he smiled and said, "Not late, not late. It's never late. You." Immediately after, on the mirror, the old man's figure flickered extremely. His voice was also unclear. "Senior brother." Xiao Hua was somewhat anxious. Just as he was about to shout, the old man appeared again. "This old man will pass." It was these 3 words that caused the mirror to vanish. However, the silver oval was still visible, but the silver light was also gradually fading away. What does this old man want to pass on? Xiao Hua waited until this so-called Wu Jiaozi Gui had been abolished. When the silver light faded away, this place would no longer have anything special. He wanted to find Yu Tong to vent his anger. Even the idea of finding trouble with Huan Hua Pai would also fall through. "That's right, Yu Dong." This old man seemed to have mistaken Yu Tong for Yu Dong, and he hesitated for a moment. Could it be that there are many people with the surname Yu in the Huan Hua sect? Is Yu Dong Yu Tong's senior brother? Moreover, the sword formations and formations within the sword catacomb can actually change. This is even more unexpected. If it weren't for the old man from the Huan Hua sect, I would still be courting death with this useless jade slip in the sword catacomb. But then again, what is the Huan Hua sect doing in the sword tomb? Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly as he quickly thought about what he had just seen. Clearly, the Huan Hua sect has some tricks up their sleeves in this sword tomb. Moreover, this arrangement had already started long before the sword Dao battle. This has nothing to do with the sword Dao battle. Fairy Hong Xia is already a disciple in the late stage of foundation establishment, and seems to be very favored by the sect leader of the Huan Hua sect. This young master has never heard her talk about the arrangement of the Huan Hua sect in the sword tomb. This place must be very secretive. If this young master discovered this secret, would he offend the sect leader of the Huan Hua sect? Then, this young master and Fairy Hong Xia's dual cultivation will be a problem. Hehe, what are you thinking? This young master is now Feng Ying. Could it be that the Huan Hua sect leader is also in the sword tomb? Xiao Hua immediately laughed sinisterly. That guy Yun Jieying is also here. This young master will go and take a look first. As Xiao Hua thought about it, the oval slowly shrank, and the silver color was about to completely disappear. Presumably, when the silver color disappeared, the oval would turn back into an ordinary stone. At this moment, like the jade slip that Xiao Hua sent out, another silver light flashed like a meteor and disappeared into the oval. It was the same jade slip that Xiao Hua sent out earlier. Hehe, it seems that even the heavens want me to go. Xiao Hua reached out with a smile and took out the jade slip. He immersed his divine sense into it, and indeed, it recorded the location of the other Zigui. Xiao Hua flew up and looked at it carefully. After identifying the direction, he opened his left hand and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. His figure slowly flew, and according to the guidance of the jade slip, he flew towards the northwest direction. After Xiao Hua flew away, the silver color of the first Jozi Gui completely disappeared, and it returned to its previous stone shape. At this time, the stone seemed to have been eroded over the years. Not only were there many small holes on the surface like a honeycomb, after being washed by the rain, the stone gradually turned into powder. It seemed that the inside was also decayed. As the rain flowed, the clear water covered the ground of the sword tomb. All the dust seeped into the ground and gradually disappeared. Not to mention Xiao Hua coming here again, even if the jade slip that he spoke of came again, there would not be any trace of it. Rumble tilde with a series of loud noises, Xiao Hua used the seal of ocean overturning seal to shatter the numerous sword intents that were as powerful as mountains and rivers. His figure was like a flood dragon as he soared through the sky. Damn it, this is too powerful. Xiao Hua's figure had just left the sword formation when he cried out in astonishment. -9. Chapter 2580. Yes, although Xiao Hua is only at the late stage of foundation establishment, his strength is comparable to the late stage of gold core. Even with his strength, he suffered so much in the sword tomb. What about others? If they haven't reached the nascent soul realm and don't have the strength to transform into a sword, I'm afraid they can't come and go freely, right? No wonder those gold core cultivators in the conference hall didn't have any ideas about the sword tomb. This is indeed not a place for people to stay. Presumably, sword cultivators won't do anything here. Xiao Hua pointed at the seal of ocean overturning, and a faint earthen yellow radiance protected him. Then, he took out the jade slip and carefully looked at it. After that, he scratched his head and flew up with slight hesitation. However, it wasn't long before a few more rays of sword light suddenly appeared. No, this young master went the wrong way again. Xiao Hua saw the familiar sword array and immediately realized. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to escape. However, it was already too late. The sword lights had already enveloped his body. After searching for more than an hour, Xiao Hua finally arrived in front of another pile of stones that formed the word complete. Xiao Hua sighed and looked around. I don't know when this young master's road-finding ability will improve. Clearly, this young master can find a path, but this young master has to take a detour. But it feels like flying straight like this is fine, but the actual route is a detour. Forget it, this young master is afraid of this kind of fate. Being able to find this place is already not bad. Immediately, Xiao Hua activated the Zigui and threw the jade slip into it. The silver light on the Zigui flashed, but the jade slip didn't fly away. It only quietly floated in the small cauldron. It seemed that only with this jade slip here could the Zigui's silver light spread out like a wave. After the time it takes to finish a meal, a figure appeared in midair in the northwest. It was impossible to see who it was, but when Xiao Hua got closer, he couldn't help but chuckle. This was a mid-foundation establishment cultivator. His hair was grizzled, his face was thin, and his chin was sharp. A few strands of sparse but long beard floated above his chin. The cultivator's eyes were sharp, and he seemed to be on high alert. He looked Xiao Hua up and down from a distance, and even looked him over. Xiao Hua laughed inwardly, but as soon as he saw who it was, he immediately retracted his Buddhist sense. He absolutely couldn't let this person discover anything unusual. That mesmerized cultivator sized up Xiao Hua from head to toe in a somewhat strange manner. Disciple Feng Ying greets. Senior brother tilde Xiao Hua also pretended to hesitate and bowed. Senior brother? That cultivator was a little strange. His body slightly floated back and he asked curiously, You? Which family's disciple are you? Which sect? Xiao Hua was just as stunned as that cultivator. This disciple is naturally a disciple of the Huan Hua sect. Could it be? Senior brother isn't. That cultivator muttered to himself for a moment, then grabbed the jade slip from the zigue with his hand. He immersed his divine sense into it and asked in a low voice, "Who told you to come here? Is this your jade slip?" Seeing the cultivator ask so many questions, Xiao Hua's heart thumped. His eyes turned slightly, and he said with a smile, "This disciple was told to come here by senior brother Yu Dong. This jade slip wasn't given to this disciple by senior brother Yu Dong. That jade slip was just taken away by a senior brother at Wu Jiao Zigue. Oh, so it was a disciple recommended by Yu Dong." Although that cultivator's voice was somewhat distorted through the mesmerizing robe, the relief in his voice was clear. "It's no wonder you went to Wu Jiao Zigue. That place was already abandoned before the end of the year. If you had arrived a few days later, even if you had the jade slip in your hand, you wouldn't have been able to find this place. However, you actually being able to come here from Wu Jiao Zigue greatly exceeded this old man's expectations. Yes, this disciple heard what that senior brother said earlier, and I've been pondering in my heart. However, senior brother, this disciple flew here just like that. Although I encountered some sword formations, they were all broken. Although this disciple was scared out of his wits, they weren't really able to injure this disciple. Is there something wrong?" Xiao Hua took the initiative to strike first, and hurriedly asked, "Do you want to examine this disciple's command token?" "Hehe, since it was recommended by Yu Dong, then it's no big deal." The cultivator smiled, then tossed the jade slip to Xiao Hua and said, "There's no need to examine it. This jade slip is even more useful than a command token." "Oh, so that's how it is." Xiao Hua's hand that was pretending to reach into his bosom stopped, and he took the jade slip with a flip of his hand. He nodded and said, "It seems that senior brother Yu Dong also said the same thing at that time. H. The rinsing flower sect's command token can only verify one's identity. Can it also raise your realm?" The cultivator sneered. "You were able to obtain this minor stone command token. That's your luck in this lifetime." Minor stone command token? Xiao Hua was somewhat dumbfounded, and he thought to himself, "Isn't this just a summoning talisman? When did it become a minor stone command token? Minor stone, is it these stones?" While thinking, Xiao Hua's gaze swept over the pile of stones. At this time, the pile of stones no longer had the silver brilliance, and they were still the same stones as before. That cultivator clearly saw Xiao Hua's gaze, and seemed to see through Xiao Hua's thoughts. He pointed with his hand and said, "Look at these stones. They're just stubborn stones, but in my hands, I can minor stone command token them into gold. You can be considered lucky to actually be acquainted with Yu Dong. In the future, you'll be a golden stone. When your cultivation is successful, you'll have to thank Yu Dong." Yes, this disciple understands. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he bowed and said, "This disciple will definitely remember senior brother Yu's kindness in my heart. All right, follow this old man." The cultivator spoke for a long time, but he didn't mention his own name, nor did he say whether or not he was a disciple of the Huanhua sect. With a wave of his hand, he took the lead and flew towards the place where he came from. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent, and he also roused his spirit. Using the speed of an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, he slowly chased after that cultivator. Sure enough, after flying for a while with the cultivator, Xiao Hua understood why the cultivator didn't encounter sword formations and magic formations, and why he frequently encountered that cultivator's flight path wasn't a straight line at all. Sometimes it was curved, sometimes it was bent, and sometimes it was even slanted. It seemed that in this cultivator's eyes, this sword tomb was a maze, and he came and went very freely. At first, Xiao Hua was still thinking about memorizing the route, but after flying for half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua gave up like before. It was because that cultivator's flight path was extremely irregular, and there wasn't anything nearby that could be used as a reference, so Xiao Hua really didn't know how to memorize it. He flew straight for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, and during this time, he didn't encounter any magic formations or sword formations. He didn't even come across a single spatial crack, causing Xiao Hua to be endlessly envious. When he thought about how he came here from Jiazi Gui, he couldn't help but blush with shame in his heart. About 10 feet in front of him, there was another pile of stones, and it wasn't any different from before. If it was the same as before, Xiao Hua would have definitely flown over, but this old man stopped in midair and didn't move forward. Xiao Hua knew that something was wrong, so he cautiously followed behind him, quietly observing the situation. Sure enough, the old man clapped his hand and took out a silvery white triangular object. He slightly activated his magic power, and that object suddenly trembled and flew above the pile of stones. As the object trembled, a trembling, intermittent silver light flowed out from the pile of rocks and slowly, almost with some difficulty, submerged the entire pile of rocks. The moment the entire pile of rocks completely turned silver, the area around the pile of rocks in a radius of 10 feet, which was right in front of the old man, boiled like boiling water. The entire space was filled with silver bubbles. These bubbles contained a great amount of power, and the direction of each bubble was different. Xiao Hua looked at this unforeseen event with some shock. He knew that if an ordinary cultivator suddenly barged in, just by relying on this strange change, the cultivator's body would be torn to shred. The boiling water continued for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn before it slowly receded. Once the space became clear again, the old man once again pointed with his hand. The 3 rhombus-shaped object from before rose slightly, following which, it transformed into a spear-like brilliance that pierced into a spot a few feet to the left of the rock. Poochie. Xiao Hua clearly heard what seemed to be the sound of silk being torn apart. The space was pierced by the spear of light, and an unfathomably deep hole several feet in size appeared on the ground. Damn it, I have to become a spirit-seeking mouse again, Xiao Hua sighed. He knew that the secret of the Huan Hua sect was hidden under the ground of the sword tomb, so he couldn't help but complain. Of course, Xiao Hua knew how to escape through the earth, so the secret of the Huan Hua sect being hidden underground was extremely beneficial to him. However, when he thought about how every time he encountered a problem, he had to solve it underground, so Xiao Hua felt a bit bored. Junior Marshal Brother Feng, please. The old man didn't move. He turned around and raised his hand, indicating for Xiao Hua to enter the cave first. All right. Xiao Hua knew that the old man was still worried about him, so he didn't hesitate and responded in a low voice. His figure flew to the entrance of the cave, and he released a bit of his Buddhist sense before flying into the cave. When Xiao Hua's figure entered the cave, the old man looked left and right. His divine sense also swept the area twice before he felt relieved and landed inside the cave. Just as Xiao Hua's figure landed inside the cave, a very strange suction force appeared from inside the cave. It was as if the suction force had grown a hand, and it pulled him into the depths of the cave. Xiao Hua muttered to himself, but he didn't reject this force. His eyes were filled with silver light, as if this deep cave was formed by the silver brilliance. Xiao Hua released his divine sense slightly, and within that silver brilliance, there was actually a sharp point, causing Xiao Hua's divine sense to feel a slight pain. Without a doubt, this place is filled with gold attribute heaven and earth spirit chi. This deep cave is also formed by gold attribute heaven and earth spirit chi. Xiao Hua thought to himself, and the magic power in his body slightly condensed to deal with any possible accident. Sure enough, when Xiao Hua landed about 10 zhong down, the pulling force actually increased, and the direction also changed, as if it wanted to clench a fist tilde. Following that, the surrounding silver light became even more intense, and that kind of sharp cutting force penetrated through the brilliance, directly piercing into Xiao Hua's skin. Naturally, Xiao Hua's protective golden light was about to be activated. -9. Chapter 2581. Ayo, could it be that you're testing this young master's cultivation? Xiao Hua slightly wrinkled his brows and forcefully restrained his magic power. While he was at it, he took out a yellow protective talisman that he hadn't used for a long time and placed it on his body with his magic power. As soon as the yellow talisman was activated, its brilliance flickered. It seemed that the brilliance in the passage was extremely powerful and was constantly attacking the protective talisman. Junior Marshal Brother Feng, don't worry. The old man's voice floated over Xiao Hua's head. This is the special feature of the restriction here. As long as you don't pay attention to it, it won't harm you. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiao Hua respectfully said. This disciple only instinctively wants to protect himself. As he spoke, Xiao Hua slapped his hand and the yellow protective talisman fell off. Without the yellow protective talisman's brilliance, the brilliance in the passage was still piercing. However, as the old man said, it didn't seem to be able to penetrate his skin. Wang tilde just as Xiao Hua was about to send a voice transmission to the old man, he heard a slight rumbling sound. The passage around Wanzhong to his left suddenly began to shake. The silver light that previously wrapped around Xiao Hua also began to shrink. Before Xiao Hua could show any surprise, bubbles that were 3 times bigger than Xiao Hua's body appeared within the silver brilliance. Pop, pop, pop tilde these bubbles burst one after another. Xiao Hua felt his entire body become light, as if he was floating in the air but also falling down. Everything in front of him became blurry and the silver brilliance violently shook. The feeling of floating in the air only lasted for a few seconds before a heavy pressure fell on Xiao Hua's shoulder. Teleport. Xiao Hua was very familiar with this feeling. He immediately understood that there was actually a short-distance teleportation formation in this passage. The silver brilliance had just been replaced by a grey-white brilliance when Xiao Hua felt his body become light again. His figure appeared in a small triangular room. Xiao Hua slightly focused his eyes and looked around. He saw that this small room was only a few kai in size and could only accommodate 3 to 5 people. The surrounding walls were the same as the passage from before. They were all silver white. However, this silver white luster was floating on the walls and wasn't dazzling. And now, there were already 2 middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators standing in this small room. These 2 cultivators were both middle-aged, each holding a flying sword in their hands. The flying swords were overflowing with sword light, and at this moment, they were pressing against Xiao Hua's ribs. Who are you? Where is your stone tablet? The 2 of them didn't wait for Xiao Hua to come back to his senses as they asked coldly. Disciple is Feng Ying, sent over by senior brother Yu Dong. Xiao Hua's expression was slightly flustered as he hurriedly replied. Your stone medallion. The 2 of them didn't seem to slack off and continued to ask. In this disciple's embrace. Xiao Hua cautiously pointed at his own chest and said in a low voice, this disciple will give it to the 2 senior brothers. Yes. A cold snort came from his nose, and the 2 flying swords moved forward a bit, fearing that Xiao Hua would do something strange. When Xiao Hua took out the jade slip, a cultivator took it and scanned it with his divine sense. His expression changed greatly as he berated, this is senior martial brother Yu Bing's stone touch token, when did it become Yu Dong's? Who the hell are you? When Xiao Hua heard this, his brows furrowed. Previously, he used the jade slip from over 10 years ago to deceive the so-called Yu Bing, and then he used half-truths to deceive the confused old man just now. He originally thought that he had passed, but he didn't expect that after being transported to this place, he would be exposed by someone. Unconsciously, he became even more suspicious. This inspection is so strict, what secret does this Huanhua sect have? This stone tablet gold really can increase the cultivation of Huanhua sect disciples? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. Disciple is naturally Feng Ying's. Disciple heard from junior martial brother Yu Dong that this place can increase disciples' cultivation, so disciple came here according to his jade slip. Just now, in the sword tomb, when junior martial brother Yu Dong sent out the jade slip, it didn't come back. This jade slip was. Senior martial brother Yu Bing sent it to disciple again. This situation, disciple already clearly explained it to a senior martial brother dressed in a confused robe. If the 2 senior martial brothers don't believe me, feel free to ask that senior martial brother. Xiao Hua actually had Feng Yi's keepsake in his space, but that was also Feng Yi's, not Feng Ying's. Seeing the 2 cultivators so strict, Xiao Hua didn't dare to rashly take it out. Hearing Xiao Hua's reply, the 2 were clearly somewhat hesitant. They glanced at each other, and one of the cultivators coldly said, take out your keepsake and take a look. This. Xiao Hua was somewhat helpless. His eyes slightly narrowed, and he immediately released his Buddhist sense. Who would have thought that the 4 walls of the small room were ice cold, just like ice? His Buddhist sense simply couldn't penetrate, and he couldn't see what was outside the small room. He also couldn't determine whether or not the two people he killed wouldn't be discovered by bystanders. "Quickly take it out," the other cultivator loudly shouted, and the flying sword in his hand once again extended towards Xiao Hua's ribs, already touching Xiao Hua's daoist robe. "Here." Xiao Hua clapped his hand, and Feng Yi's keepsake was taken out. However, Xiao Hua was still somewhat hesitant, and unhappily handed it over. "You take a look." The cultivator who used the flying sword to threaten Xiao Hua's waist ordered the other person. That person extended his hand, and was about to take the keepsake from Xiao Hua's hand. With a "hoo" sound, a small door about the height of a person opened behind the cultivator, and a somewhat hoarse voice sounded, "Feng Ying." The person who came was the old man dressed in camouflage, but at this moment, the old man had already removed the camouflage and revealed his true appearance. Of course, when he saw the situation inside the small room, his face became somewhat unsightly. "Oh, I was wondering why this junior Marshall brother Feng didn't come out for a long time." So it was the two junior Marshall brothers who were making things difficult for him. The old man coldly snorted and said, "This Feng Ying was sent by Yu Dong, and at the same time, senior Marshall brother Yu Bing also let him go. Why are you guys interrogating him like this? Do you think this old man's interrogation wasn't detailed enough? You want to find clues from Feng Ying's body?" Senior Marshall brother Yu Ping, the face of the cultivator who originally wanted the keepsake, also became somewhat unsightly. He retracted his hand and cupped his hands. "This is the duty of us two brothers. Please forgive us, senior Marshall brother. Your duty is naturally yours," Yu Ping coldly said. "But this old man brought him in. If there was a problem, how could this old man not know?" According to this old man's knowledge, in these past few years, Yu Dong didn't send many talents here, and he was already scolded by the sect master. Today, he sent junior Marshall brother Feng Ying here with great difficulty, and is even a disciple of the cleansing flower sect. You guys are interrogating him like this. Are you dissatisfied with this old man, or with senior Marshall brother Yu Bing? Senior Marshall brother Yu Ping. The other disciple glanced at Xiao Hua, wanting to say something, but hesitated, and also put away the flying sword in his hand. "What? You have nothing to say?" Yu Ping was unwilling to let go. This old man recommended a few disciples 2 years ago, and when they just arrived here, they were made difficult by you guys. They couldn't stand it, and gave up such a good opportunity to turn stone into gold, turned around and left. Did you guys receive Yu Hua's instructions, and insist on opposing senior Marshall brother Yu Bing? Senior Marshall brother. The two people's faces were unsightly, and they transmitted in a low voice, "We already said just now, this is our duty. Turning stone into gold is an extremely secretive matter, and it's of great importance. Cultivators who aren't closely related to our Yu family absolutely can't participate, and any cultivators with the slightest trace of abnormality can't enter." Senior Marshall brother speaking so much in front of outsiders, "Aren't you afraid of being punished by Lord Sect Master?" Punished? PH, haven't we been punished enough? Hearing the word punished, the old man became even more furious, but he didn't forget the middle-aged cultivator's reminder, and transmitted in a voice transmission, "Yu Dong's mouth is clumsy, and he hasn't recommended any cultivators here for 2 years. If he still can't complete the task this year, you naturally understand his situation. This disciple is an early Foundation establishment disciple of the Cleansing Flower sect, and his cultivation seems to be pretty good. Yu Dong must have spent a lot of effort. Just now, he took the initiative to take out his token for this old man to examine, but this old man didn't look carefully. So what if there's something wrong with him? My Yu family's turning stone into gold plan has been going on for more than 10 years, and there hasn't been any problems. What kind of big waves can this little early Foundation establishment cultivator cause? Besides, isn't the token in his hand the Cleansing Flower sect? This old man has seen it more than once or twice, can't you see it too?" Speaking up to here, the two middle-aged cultivators' gazes involuntarily fell on the token in Xiao Hua's hand. Seeing the three suddenly transmitting their voices, Xiao Hua's heart jumped, and seeing the three of them looking at the token in his hand, Xiao Hua inwardly cried out in alarm. Presumably, senior marshal brother Yu Bing also saw through Yu Dong's situation, so he took the initiative to give his stone marking token to Feng Ying. Yu Ping shifted his gaze away from the token in Xiao Hua's hand, and transmitted his voice again. This old man will say it here, you can check it as you wish. The matter of Yu Bing and Yu Hua isn't something you and I should get involved in. Previously, you all drove away the disciple this old man chose, and this old man will slowly find an opportunity to settle accounts with you all in the future. This disciple, if you still want to send him back, then do it as soon as possible. Saying this, Yu Ping no longer spoke, and turned to leave the room. Senior marshal brother Yu Ping, the cultivator on the left said with a smile, this disciple's token is not bad, it's indeed a disciple of the cleansing flower sect, how can this one not let him pass? As for what senior marshal brother said just now, it's actually false. This token naturally belongs to the cleansing flower sect, but this person may not be a disciple of the cleansing flower sect. This old man has never guaranteed that he is a disciple of the cleansing flower sect. If you don't check it carefully and something happens, don't drag this old man into it. Yu Ping said with a cold smile, completely ungrateful. Senior marshal brother Yu Bing already let him in, what could possibly happen? The other cultivator also hurriedly said with a smile, senior marshal brother Yu Bing is also a senior marshal brother that we all respect, we definitely don't have the intentions that senior marshal brother said just now. Oh! Xiao Hua's suspended heart relaxed again. From a bystander's point of view, he could already see that some people seemed to have found a gap in the struggle between them, an opportunity where others wouldn't check the token in his hand. -9. Chapter 2582. Senior Marshal Brothers, this token. Xiao Hua loosened the reins only to grasp them better and raised his token. Put it away. The two cultivators didn't have much coldness on their faces, as if they were really afraid that if Xiao Hua turned around, they would offend that Yu Bing. Feng Ying, come with me. Yu Ping coldly snorted, waved his hand, and walked out of the room first. Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua hurriedly put away the token, cupped his hands towards the two cultivators, and quickly chased after them. This senior marshal brother Yu Ping is really something. After the two left, the two cultivators also sat cross-legged on the ground. The one on the left complained, what kind of cultivators did he find before? Two loose cultivators, one chi refinement cultivator, with the head of a snake and the eyes of a rat, almost the same as him. They didn't meet the sect master's requirements at all, what's wrong with us blocking them? He, on the other hand, was unconsciously vigilant, and even pushed the responsibility to us. What is this? What does the matter of Yu Bing and Yu Hua have to do with us? Forget it, let him be, the other cultivator coldly said, this Feng Ying, it doesn't seem inappropriate, even if it is inappropriate, so what? There are tens of thousands of cultivators who participate in the Midas Touch, have you ever heard of any of them? He himself is well aware that we didn't check his origin, we only checked his cultivation and aptitude. The cultivator still didn't let it go. He was originally using this as an excuse to stir up trouble. That might not be the case. The other cultivator indifferently said, Yu Dong is favored by Yu Bing. Yu Dong's cultivation is good, but he's a man of few words. How many cultivators did he send over these years? He couldn't fulfill the sect master's requirements, and Yu Bing's face was also unsightly. No wonder Yu Ping was a bit impatient. Isn't that right? 9,000 cultivators are. The cultivator's face showed a trace of exaggeration. The other cultivator hurriedly put his finger to his mouth, and anxiously said, do you want to die? This kind of thing, how can you casually say it? Yes, little brother was wrong. The cultivator's heart also trembled, and he hurriedly shut his mouth. How could Xiao Hua know so many secrets? He didn't know that the other party had gone easy on him, and he was still proud of his cleverness. However, he also sensed that something was wrong. This place doesn't seem to be the disciples of the Huan Hua sect. Why, are they all surnamed Yu? Xiao Hua immediately thought of what Zhong Haoren had said. Could it be that this is the Yu family of the fallen Gold Mountain? Falling Gold Mountain. Turning stone into gold? What does this have to do with Huanhua sect? Based on the surname Yu Tong must be a disciple of Falling Gold Mountain. He could enter the Huanhua sect by cheating, so he must have colluded with the Huanhua sect. Moreover, from the fact that Yu Tong was holding the Master's token that year, the Huanhua sect is also connected to Falling Gold Mountain. Maybe Falling Gold Mountain is a cultivation family controlled by the Huanhua sect. Xiao Hua thought as he followed Yu Ping out of the small house. When he saw the situation outside the small house, he was even more shocked. In front of him was a huge space. There were countless buildings in this space, and these buildings were completely different from what Xiao Hua had seen before. The buildings in the past were usually carved beams and painted pillars, and had an antique flavor. Even the buildings in the Sky Patrol City were made of huge stones. Although they were rare, they were not particularly rare. The buildings in front of him were all emitting a silver luster, as if all the buildings were plated with a layer of silver light. Even though they looked like pavilions, the light gave people the illusion that these pavilions were large celestial devices. Moreover, there were many such pavilions, huts, and passageways. They were all connected to each other, as if the entire space was a huge celestial device. The heaven and earth spiritual energy of the metal attribute is indeed dense. Xiao Hua thought to himself. But what is the purpose of the Huanhua sect or Falling Gold Mountain to set up such a huge formation? This is the Sword Tomb. Xiao Hua's astonished gaze moved away from the surrounding buildings, and he looked at the wall beside him. He could not help but stretch out his hand and touch it with his finger. A cold and smooth feeling came from the silver wall, and it was no different from a magical tool that was refined on a daily basis. Yu Ping seemed to have noticed Xiao Hua's action, but he revealed a smile and did not stop him. Outside the small house was a rather large plaza, and the silver floor was incomparably smooth. One could almost see the reflections of people on it. There were not many cultivators walking around the plaza, but when they saw Yu Ping, they nodded slightly or bowed to him, as though they were very familiar with him. In fact, when these disciples saw Xiao Hua, they also nodded slightly, making him feel very warm. I wonder how much Yu Dong has told you. After leading Xiao Hua into this place, Yu Ping said with a smile, however, this old man does not wish to explain too much to you. Just like what this old man said, being able to participate in my Yu family's Midas touch is definitely the best choice you've made in your life. Yes, Xiao Hua looked around and smiled apologetically. Even if this little one had some doubts previously, after seeing this place, this little one has no more doubt. It is just that, this little one did not expect that junior brother Yu did not say clearly that this place is actually the Yu family of Fallen Gold Mountain. Harais, you also know that Yu Dong's words are not good. He was afraid that you misunderstood, so he only said your Huanhua sect. However, the relationship between your Huanhua sect and my Fallen Gold Mountain, I believe, you should also know about it. Yu Ping sighed, as though he was explaining something. Of course, the more he explained, the more Xiao Hua was confused. Xiao Hua didn't answer and only laughed foolishly. Yu Ping saw this silly laugh and actually thought that Xiao Hua had understood his meaning. He said, since Yu Dong introduced you to me, he must have trusted you. Just now, this old man was risking my face to keep you here because I didn't want those two disciples who didn't know when to back down to ruin Yu Dong's good intentions for you. Wait until your cultivation level increases, Yu. As he said that, Yu Ping's face turned cold. Although you do not need to be loyal to my Yu family like the disciples of my Fallen Gold Mountain, as long as my Yu family has any matters, you must do your best and not slack off in the slightest. Yes, this disciple understands. Xiao Hua acted very well, however, this matter must not harm the interests of my sect. If not, this disciple will not participate in this Shecheng Jin sect and return to the Huanhua sect. Haha, junior brother Fengying, you are thinking too much. Yu Ping laughed. When has my Fallen Gold Mountain ever harmed the interests of the Huanhua sect? If there is such a day, I'm afraid. What are you afraid of? Yu Ping and Xiao Hua walked to a corner, and a hoarse voice sounded from the side of the silver wall that Xiao Hua could not see. Senior brother Yu Hua tilde Yu Ping seemed to be extremely familiar with this voice, and was even more afraid. Hearing this voice, he immediately shrunk his neck, and stood there respectfully, quietly waiting for this senior brother named Yu Hua to appear. This is. Xiao Hua also seemed to be familiar with this voice, and the corner of his mouth rose slightly, and a trace of a smile flashed in his eyes. Sure enough, when that senior brother Yu Hua turned around the corner, wasn't it a white-clothed old man with a slightly green face and a brandy nose who was in the late foundation establishment stage? Wasn't it the person who snatched the robin that Xiao Hua had already caught and gave it to Yu Tong when Xiao Hua was participating in the disciple selection in the Hua Hua sect? Thumpage tilde that Yu Hua was indeed overbearing, and upon seeing Yu Ping, he coldly snorted, "How do you know that my fallen gold mountain will harm the interests of the Huan Hua sect?" "Good, senior brother knows." Yu Ping hurriedly smiled. "This little brother is only assuming. This little brother is also clear in his heart that my fallen gold mountain and the Huan Hua sect are bound together, so how could we do anything that would harm the Huan Hua sect?" "What do you mean by bound together?" Yu Hua glanced at Yu Ping and laughed. "Fallen gold mountain is fallen gold mountain, and the Huan Hua sect is the Huan Hua sect. One is a cultivation family, and the other is a cultivation sect. Even if there are some interests involved, it is only a temporary cooperation. What are you talking about bound together? It is truly laughable. If this was known by the Huan Hua sect, wouldn't they laugh their heads off?" Yes, this little brother naturally understands." Yu Ping was not angry at all, and still lowered his head and smiled apologetically. "The Huan Hua sect is a towering tree, and Fallen Gold Mountain is only a small blade of grass under the tree. We are the stalks above the grass, and to be able to enjoy the shade under the big tree, we have to thank the Huan Hua sect. We also have to thank senior brother Yu Hua, this meritorious disciple who is negotiating with the Huan Hua sect for the sake of Fallen Gold Mountain. It's good that you know." Yu Hua glanced at Xiao Hua. "Don't speak nonsense for no reason. If other people were to hear it, who knows what it would be like. You have to remember, trouble comes from the mouth. This is the disciple that was just selected." Yes. Yu Ping finally let out a breath, and hurriedly laughed. "This is also a disciple of the Huan Hua sect. This disciple feels that his foundation is quite good." "Oh, a disciple of the Huan Hua sect." The corner of Yu Hua's eye twitched, as if he was interested in Xiao Hua. Bad tilde Xiao Hua secretly complained, but he could only brace himself and step forward, bowing. "This disciple greets senior brother." "No need to call me senior brother. This old man is not a disciple of the Huan Hua sect. It's just that I am extremely familiar with many of the Huan Hua sect's elders." You are?" Yu Hua opened his mouth to ask, but seemed to have thought of something, and waved his hand. "Forget it, no matter which fellow's disciple you are, since you are here, you are the beneficiary of the Midas touch. I believe Yu Ping has already told you. Do your best, young man. The Huan Hua sect will be your world in the future." Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple is endlessly grateful to senior brother and the others. Xiao Hua hurriedly smiled apologetically. It's good that you know." Yu Hua glanced at Xiao Hua, and no longer asked about Xiao Hua's origin, and walked away. When he walked past Xiao Hua and Yu Ping, the ridicule at the corner of his mouth involuntarily appeared, and he did not hide it at all. -9. Chapter 2583. Yu Ping didn't dare to move. Seeing Yu Hua cross half of the square and enter a corridor, he curled his lips and coldly snorted. He seemed to be muttering in a low voice, "What's so great about him? He was a middle foundation establishment stage cultivator like me, but he did something for my falling gold mountain. That's why he benefited. He was promoted to an elder, but now he doesn't put falling gold mountain in his eyes. He keeps talking about Huan Hua sect as if he's a disciple of Huan Hua sect. Doesn't he know his surname is Yu?" Xiao Hua lowered his head and didn't look at Yu Ping. He only pricked up his ears. At this time, he already understood that this Yu Hua was a disciple of Falling Gold Mountain. When Yu Tong entered Huan Hua sect, it was this guy who did something for Falling Gold Mountain. Of course, whether this matter was what Yu Ping said was unknown, but Xiao Hua understood that this Yu Hua who had some relationship with Huan Hua sect seemed to be at odds with Yu Bing who he saw in the mirror. Haha, yes, one is Yu Bing, the other is Yu Hua. They were just born, and their parents were already trying to make them at odds. Xiao Hua laughed in his heart, but then he muttered, there seems to be something strange. If it's a cultivator who has a good relationship with Huan Hua sect, it's reasonable to ask a few questions when they see a junior, such as whose disciple they are, how their master and elders are doing, and so on. Especially the Midas touch, which helps people improve their cultivation. Wouldn't Falling Gold Mountain want to sell it? Strange, strange. Yu Ping muttered a few words. Seeing that Xiao Hua was still obediently lowering his head, he wasn't in a good mood to explain anything to Xiao Hua. At this time, Xiao Hua whispered, Senior Martial Brother, isn't this Senior Martial Brother Yu Hua a disciple of my Huan Hua sect? He wants to. Yu Ping coldly said, but Huan Hua sect doesn't want him. Now he's an elder of Falling Gold Mountain, how can he enter Huan Hua sect? Then he ignored Xiao Hua and left first. Xiao Hua suppressed the doubts in his heart and followed him into a corridor. This corridor looked very strange. It wasn't straight, but rather tangled and complicated, like a spider web. Yu Ping led Xiao Hua into the corridor, and after walking for another half a cigarette, they arrived at a smooth wall. He patted his hand and took out a token. Activating his magic power, the token flashed with the same silver brilliance as the wall. Yu Ping pressed the token against the wall. Once the token and the wall came into contact, it immediately let out a low sword hum, and the area around 10 feet around them began to shake. Feng Ying, place your stone medallion on top. Yu Ping instructed. Yes. Xiao Hua responded. He didn't circulate his magic power and placed the jade slip in front of him. A suction force came from the place where the jade slip came in contact with the wall, firmly sucking the jade slip to the wall. Immediately after, Xiao Hua felt the jade slip emitting heat. Let go. Yu Ping said. Following Xiao Hua's release, the jade slip instantly melted, turning into a ball of jade liquid that spread out on the wall. Then, it began to spin from the inside out. When the jade liquid seemed to spin into a rune, the jade liquid went deep into the wall that seemed abnormally hard. At the same time, a rune similar to the jade liquid flashed on the wall and disappeared. A small door about the height of a person appeared in the wall. Xiao Hua's gaze swept over it. Inside, there was a small triangular room that was similar to the one he came in from. Junior Brother Feng. Yu Ping introduced his medallion, then took out a small jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. He smiled and said, originally, I should have brought you around here to see the other senior brothers of the Huan Hua sect and Fallen Gold Mountain. However, time is running out and you've come a bit late. Junior brother should also be clear that although this is a fast method, there is also a price to pay. Not to mention the pain of the physical body, there will also be problems in the meridians and other places. The most important thing is that junior brother still has to cooperate with this bitter chew method. This is a secret method that my Fallen Gold Mountain created by combining the methods commonly used by the disciples of the Huan Hua sect. Junior brother still needs to look at it. When the time comes, if you can't follow the instructions of the secret method and guide the innate gold qi into your meridians and transform it into your own true essence, not only will this opportunity be gone with the wind, even your own cultivation will have the possibility of all your previous efforts being wasted. Is it that serious? Xiao Hua hurriedly asked. It seems. Junior brother Yu Dong didn't mention it. Yu Ping said with some displeasure, without any risk, you can easily advance from the early stage of foundation establishment to the middle stage of foundation establishment or even the late stage of foundation establishment. How can there be such a cheap thing in the world? Junior brother must have already thought it through clearly. If it was that simple, I'm afraid that my Fallen Gold Mountain would have already been filled with foundation establishment cultivators. Why would you need to find other fellow Taoists? Xiao Hua laughed and didn't continue to pester him. He asked again, I just don't know how much time you'll give me. If this secret method is complicated, this disciple doesn't have the confidence to fully comprehend it. This old man can't say for sure. Perhaps several days, perhaps 10 days. Of course, it could also be 10 days. Junior brother should comprehend it earlier. The earlier you comprehend it, the earlier you can grasp it. Otherwise, if you suddenly start, junior brother will be caught unprepared. Yu Ping replied without hesitation. Then, is this disciple inside this small room? Can I come out? Xiao Hua looked at the small room and was somewhat hesitant. Naturally, you can't come out. Yu Ping was somewhat impatient. Junior brother, just treat it as seclusion. When you come out of seclusion, if by chance, I'm afraid that this old man will have to call junior brother senior brother. Hihi, I hope so. Xiao Hua was so happy that his eyes were about to close. However, he still didn't want to go in. At this moment, a kind of fear emerged from the back of his head, as if someone was spying on him. Who? Xiao Hua's heart stirred and he released his Buddhist sense. However, his back and all around him were completely empty. There wasn't even any divine sense sweeping over him. Should I go in or not? Xiao Hua felt that this place was not good. However, if he were to turn hostile, the cultivator spying on him might not be any weaker than a golden core cultivator. Although he could cause a ruckus, how would he escape? How would he find out the secrets of the Huanhua sect and falling gold mountain? All of that would be for naught. How can one catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? This young master wants to see if this small room can trap this young master. Xiao Hua secretly thought in his heart. If so, many thanks to senior brother. Xiao Hua knew that he couldn't hesitate at this moment. After cupping his hands and thanking him, he stepped into the small room. As Xiao Hua's figure entered the small room, Yu Ping waved his hand and the whole slowly melted, as if a melted liquid was gathering in one place. Yu Ping, who sent this disciple here? An ice-cold voice came from the silver building. It was very loud, but it was impossible to identify its origin. Yu Ping's heart trembled. He immediately bowed respectfully and said to the sky, "This is the Huanhua sect disciple that Yu Dong chose to send here. Her name is Feng Ying." Oh! Huanhua sect disciple. This Yu Dong is really daring. If the Huanhua sect were to find out about this, wouldn't it be troublesome? Although the cold voice sounded a little surprised, it didn't sound surprised at all. Yu Dong has always been cautious. Yu Ping smiled apologetically and said, if he thinks it's okay, then it's okay. Moreover, he hasn't chosen a disciple yet. This time, if he doesn't find a suitable disciple, I'm afraid he will be punished by the sect master. Perhaps he has no other choice. Besides, there were also many Huanhua sect disciples before. The ice-cold voice snorted coldly. Yu Ping was so frightened that he lowered his head and didn't dare to defend himself. It's true that you were punished because you didn't find a cultivator and couldn't complete the mission. However, if the cultivator sent here is not suitable and leaks the news, or ruins my grand plan, then it won't be a matter of punishment. It will be a consequence of your head being separated from your body. After hearing this, Yu Ping waited for a long while, but didn't say anything else. He tilted his head and looked at the silver building. The sky was also silver. He shrank his neck and hurriedly left. Above the silver sky that Yu Ping was afraid of, a light cloud rose. It had the atmosphere of an immortal. However, these light clouds weren't truly pale white. Instead, they had a kind of heaviness and an indescribable sharpness. They were completely filled with silver. Above the silver clouds, a well-built gold core old man wearing a silver robe stood there. This old man had silver white hair and a silver white beard. Even his face faintly flickered with a silver white color, making him appear different from others. The strangest thing was that this old man's eyes also emitted a faint silver white light. He was looking at a tiger-shaped magic tool in his hand. As expected, the mystic artifact was also silvery white in color. On the back of the mystic artifact, there was an oval mirror that was emitting a faint silvery white light. The light reflected the light in the old man's eyes, revealing the situation within the various buildings under the silver cloud. Just like Xiao Hua's small hut, through this tiger-shaped magic tool, the old man was able to see over 10,000 small huts. The vast majority of these huts had a cultivator. These cultivators were all at the early or middle stage of foundation establishment. There were even a few at the late stage. However, these cultivators' daoist robes were different. They clearly weren't from the same sect. Another similarity was that each cultivator held a small jade slip in their hands. Some were using their divine sense to enter, while others were closing their eyes and pondering. After roughly looking through it, the old man clapped his hand, and a silver-white brilliance appeared on his palm. The tiger-shaped artifact disappeared into the old man's hand, and the silver light in the old man's eyes also dissipated, revealing his pitch-black eyes. However, within those eyes, there were traces of silver light. Wait a few more days. When the people are all gathered, the Midas touch can be activated. The old man seemed very satisfied. A trace of a smile appeared on his face. However, this smile seemed somewhat forced. If the old man wasn't truly happy, then there must be something wrong with the muscles on his face. -9. Chapter 2584. Immediately, the old man turned around and flew for a moment. With a flick of his sleeve, a light flashed, and a huge portal appeared out of thin air. The old man flashed into it, and then the portal disappeared again. Xiao Hua saw that the old man was in a space that was several times larger than the square that Xiao Hua had just seen. This space was empty, and there were only 2 balls of silver-white light rolling in the air. These 2 balls of light looked exactly the same at first glance, but as the old man flew closer, one of the balls of light had a silver-white brilliance mixed with fiery red threads, and a threatening heat rushed over. The other ball of light had a silver-white brilliance mixed with azure threads, and a bone-piercing chill also rushed over. In the face of such extreme heat and extreme cold, the old man's face showed even more satisfaction. He waved his hand, and a dozen silver lights flew out from his sleeve and hit various places in the space. The silver light in the space flourished, and countless strange runes appeared, flowing on the surface of the entire space for a moment before disappearing. Thus, the old man patted his hand and took out the tiger-shaped magic weapon. Under the urging of his spiritual power, the tiger-shaped magic weapon gradually transformed, and a lifelike silver tiger appeared in mid-air. The silver tiger raised its head and roared. The golden spiritual energy of heaven and earth rushed into the silver tiger's bloody mouth, and a hurricane was born from the space. However, although the hurricane was strong, the old man's robe was like cast iron, and it did not move at all. When the silver tiger soared to more than 2 feet tall, the silver tiger stopped absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The old man made a gesture with his hand and pointed at the silver ball of light with azure threads. The silver tiger opened its mouth and spat out a misty silver light. The silver light fell on the ball of light, and like hot water poured on a snowball, the ball of light quickly melted, revealing a gap of 1 person's height. "Little friend Zhong, are you ready?" The old man's voice lowered, which was rare, and his address was even more amiable. "Sect Master Yu Qingtian is so impatient." A clear female voice came from the gap, and then a woman's figure appeared in the gap. Back to Xiao Hua, under the prying eyes of Sect Master Yu Qingtian, he had no choice but to enter the hut. However, he felt that prying eyes were still there, and this feeling was like a fishbone stuck in his throat, making him very uncomfortable. He had no choice but to pretend to take out the jade slip and carefully read it. However, as he read it, he really went deep into the secret technique and concentrated. After the time it took to eat a meal, he withdrew his divine sense from the jade slip, and immediately, without hesitation, he waved his hand and took out a sword slip. However, as soon as he took it out, he was startled. He raised his head and looked around. Fortunately, the feeling of being spied eyes on, and he was the only one in the hut. This cultivator should be around the middle stage of the gold core, and he is relying on some magic weapon. Xiao Hua gave Yu Qingtian a rough estimate. Then, he immersed his divine sense into the sword bamboo slip and looked at the cultivation method for half a meal. Only then did he put away the sword bamboo slip. He frowned slightly and closed his eyes to ponder. His brows gradually relaxed, and the hand seals in Xiao Hua's hand also slowly formed, and a silver brilliance gradually emerged from his hand. Finally, it condensed into a silver-white small sword in his hand. Strange. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the small sword, and he muttered in his heart, how could this falling gold mountains Yu family have a secret technique for sword cultivation? On the surface, this secret technique looks like a cultivation method for Dao cultivators, and the first half is about how to cater to the different fluctuations of the formation, and how to guide the sword qi in the formation into the meridians in the body. This formation, perhaps, is the formation that turns stone into gold. And the second half is how to condense the sword qi into true essence. But, according to this secret technique, how can the sword qi be turned into true essence? How can it be guided into the meridians? This sword qi can only be formed into sword origin, right? Moreover, the second half of this secret technique is extremely obscure and vague. It can be said without mercy that it hides a lot of key things. If you comprehend it together with this sword cultivation method, you will be able to understand it. Yu family, what are they doing? Xiao Hua was absolutely puzzled. Are they cultivating their own power? Do they want to break away from the washing flower sect and become a cultivation sect? I can only understand it like this. It seems that all the cultivation families want to break away from their identity as a family. If Yu family can turn stone into gold, maybe they can create a group of cultivators, and becoming a sect won't be difficult. Hehe, I'm afraid this is what you want this washing flower sect disciple to promise you. Xiao Hua secretly laughed, put away the jade slip and sword slip, and stood up. This young master should also go out and take a look. See if this young master's guess is correct. Thinking, Xiao Hua pinched his hand, and a yellow brilliance flashed around his body, and he was about to use the earth escape technique. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hua's figure moved, and the silver luster under his feet became even brighter, and even some brilliance was produced. This is bad. This floor is indeed not made of earth or stone, Xiao Hua secretly cursed. His guess when he entered the room just now was actually true. Immediately, Xiao Hua walked to the wall, stretched out his arm, and placed his hand flat on the wall. A kind of ice-cold and brilliant feeling passed through his palm. Xiao Hua even used his finger to knock on the wall a few times, and a clear sound rang out again. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, and opened his left hand. In the illusion breaker eye, a layer of faint and thin silver brilliance surrounded him. This brilliance was extremely dense, and there were no flaws. This is troublesome. Xiao Hua complained incessantly, and slapped his hand, taking out the rabbit spirit talisman. After a slight hesitation, he hit it on the wall. Fortunately, although the silver wall looked extremely dense, and even a needle couldn't pierce it, when the rabbit spirit talisman hit it, it emitted specks of silver brilliance, and the spirit talisman sank in, disappearing without a trace. Haha tilde seeing this, Xiao Hua's heart calmed down, and he secretly laughed as he hit the other spirit talismans on the wall. After a moment, Xiao Hua carefully grabbed with his hand, and a small hole appeared in the middle of the rabbit spirit talisman. Xiao Hua released his spiritual sense from the hole, and seeing that there were no traces of anyone else, he worriedly stuck his head out. After confirming that he could escape from the room, he retracted his head back, and kept the rabbit spirit talisman. Hee, since I can escape so easily, I will act according to the situation. In the end, this young master doesn't believe that the Yu family won't reveal their true colors. This young master doesn't believe that there will be anyone who can block this young master's escape. Xiao Hua said with a cold sneer. Thinking about this, Xiao Hua kept the spirit talisman, and sat down cross-legged. He took out the secret techniques of the Yu family and the sword arts of sword cultivators, and carefully compared them, slowly comprehending them. Not to mention that Xiao Hua had fallen into the small room of the Yu family, he relied on his profound strength, and didn't care about the danger of this trap. Instead, he calmed his heart, comprehended the secret techniques of the Yu family, and waited for the Yu family to reveal the truth. Furthermore, the Jindan cultivators in the discussion hall were all dressed up, and they personally led their disciples to attack the arrogant sword cultivators according to their previous arrangements, and to open the curtains to the final battle. Before leaving, the Jindan cultivators in the discussion hall gathered together again, and discussed for a long time. They seemed to have exhausted their minds, and considered all the arrangements, attacks, and even retreating if they failed. They understood in their hearts that this battle was crucial, and they were staking it all on a single throw. If they couldn't seize the opportunity to attack first, and catch the sword cultivators off guard, then the Dao cultivators wouldn't be able to recover from their previous disadvantage, and they would be defeated sooner or later. Thus, the people who usually had some grudges during discussions in the discussion hall didn't dare to be negligent, and they openly spoke their thoughts, as well as the thoughts of others. Sure enough, after brainstorming together, they really did find quite a few details that they had overlooked. As a matter of fact, in the vicinity of Clear Sky Cave, Kunlun sects Yuan Zhongyu, Imperial Thunder sects Gan Mo, and Clear Leaf sects Ji Hong all wore grave expressions as they urged the tens of thousands of disciples of the three sects to fly quietly while discussing something in low voices. Yuan Zhongyu's spiritual sense swept out, and he looked at the gloomy sky with spots of light in the distance, and said, "Fellow Daoist Chen, fellow Daoist Ji, I'm afraid that it will be troublesome for us to head to Clear Cave today." That's right. When I heard that the sword cultivators were actually building a city here, I felt that it was funny. The sword cultivators who have always been arrogant actually imitated our Dao cultivators to build a defense, and this is simply stealing it. In the eyes of us experts, this trick is just showing off. Ji Hong also nodded. But before we left, after listening to everyone's careful analysis, I realized that there was indeed something fishy about this. That's right. Today's sword cultivators are no longer the simple-minded people in our eyes who don't know when to advance or retreat, and who only rely on the sharpness of their flying swords to flaunt their superiority. Think about Qin Jian's schemes over the past few years, and how many of our fellow Taoists have died under his sword, and think about how many times we have fallen into the sword cultivators' schemes in this great battle. It makes me shudder. Yuan Zhongyu bit his lips and narrowed his eyes as he spoke. Perhaps this Clear Cave is another sword cultivator's trap. Ji Hong didn't hide her guilty conscience. Now that I think about it, it was really reckless of me to ask for a battle. Hehe, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Yuan Zhongyu also laughed bitterly in a low voice. But now that we're already here, the arrow on the bow has to be shot. At this point, Yuan Zhongyu looked at Qian Mo, who was only looking forward and didn't say anything. He then exchanged glances with Ji Hong and said that cunning Qin Jian was killed by 3 juniors, and his lifetime of fame has been created by these 3 kids. Fellow Daoist Qian, congratulations, your Imperial Thunder sect Xiao Hua is now very famous. Xiao Hua is just the most ordinary disciple in my Imperial Thunder sect. Qian Mo said indifferently. He even entered my Imperial Thunder sect as a rogue cultivator. There are many more disciples in my Imperial Thunder sect who are more outstanding than him. 9. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.